Evening, everyone. I hope you're well. It's Good Friday, actually. So, welcome to the Stage by Stage show live. If you are watching it live, as I say, Good Friday. What would be happening in the Circuit of Ireland all those years ago on Good Friday? I've done a load of stages on the Friday, getting ready to drive through the night to Killarney on Saturday afternoon. That's probably it. So, welcome along to the Stage by Stage show live. I'm Trevor Agnew. It's my pleasure to guide you through a couple of hours of entertainment with a complete rally legend that is Cathal Curley. And we'll get Cathal on in about 5 minutes. And he's going to regale us with quite a few stories, no doubt, as we go through the evening. You'll remember, if you were here about 5-6 weeks ago, that he did make a starring appearance in the Galway International Rally 50th anniversary. We managed to keep him down to 15-20 minutes at that point, but clearly it was inevitable that he was going to come back on and fill a complete show on his own. So I'm really looking forward to having a bit of crack with Cathal tonight. And no doubt plenty of stories some of you may not have heard of before, and some of the classic ones that we have, no doubt. So thanks very much again for all the feedback and the comments we had from last week's show with John Lyons. It was an epic, over 3 hours. It's just amazing how quickly the time goes when you're listening to some of these stories, and no better man than John Lyons to tell a story or two. If you haven't seen that, please get onto the stagebystage.com/blog site, and you'll be able to see that. Also, we released a podcast with Robert Reid last week. Again, thanks very much for all the kind comments about that. We went over 2 hours, but some fascinating stuff that Robert came up with, but also a little bit of geeky stuff that the two of us got into around learning, development and coaching and models and all sorts of things. But yeah, thanks again for the feedback on all of that. Okay, a few other things that I just want to cover off. I mentioned last week about the survey that has been put out for potential Rally Northern Ireland in 2022. So this is what we can actually look forward to going forward to 2022, folks. Just have a quick look at this. So there you have it. You can see the survey mentioned there we were talking about last week. So if you live outside of Northern Ireland and you would like to come and support the rally and come and support a round of the World Rally Championship in the UK. So it's not just about Ireland, Northern Ireland, but it is a UK rally that we're hoping to get the championship back. So the survey is to assess support and willingness to travel to Northern Ireland as a round of the 2022 World Championship. COVID's permitting, clearly. And as a thank you for the cooperation in the survey, there's lots of really good rewards. So you've got the opportunity to win 5 days B&B in a 4-star Belfast hotel for 2 people for Rally Northern Ireland. 5 annual subscriptions to WRC Plus are up for grabs, and 12 McLean calendars. That's the wider view calendar. Absolutely brilliant calendar. So those are some of the rewards for some of the lucky people who fill in the survey. It literally only takes you 2 minutes, folks, and it's a great thing to do. So please do that. That'll be great. Right, what else have I got for you tonight? Got a couple of stories for you. So later on, when Cathal joins, I'm going to tell a story from a guy called Ivor Clark. Ivor, the driver from Scotland, is a top bloke and a very fast man this day, and an Avenger as well, and Sunbeams, of course. But he told a couple of stories. He sent me up, as well as the one about Cathal and a reminder about an event. He also sent 2 others, which I want to share with you because they're good stories, and this is what this show is all about. So he said, my son Stephen and I went over to Northern Ireland for a 1-day event, which Willie Singleton was helping to organise. Hi to Willie and his family. They'll be watching it tonight. And all the best. Have a good Easter. Very heavy rain, single venue. Stephen finished second, I think, in a Peugeot 306. Our crawl, Willie and Trevor Fleming. Trevor Fleming, of course, is a legend. They're both being coal men, having a debate on the amount of coal they delivered in their time. Trevor finished with saying, bollocks. I've lost more bags in the Mire roundabout than you've ever delivered. So it's some crack when Trevor Fleming was on the go, no doubt. Those who remember TF and a Sunbeam will know it. So the other story that he told me was he was going to do the Scottish with TV personality Alan Douglas. But the problem was getting a signature for his international license. So they managed to get an entry for Lurgan Park, which, back then was quite a prized possession, in order to get a signature on the license for this TV presenter, Alan Douglas. But then Ivor decided he wanted to have a good go at Lurgan Park. So he recruits, again, Trevor Fleming to take Alan with instructions to finish at all costs. So the vital thing was to get to the end of the rally and get a signature on the license. So that allowed then Ivor the opportunity to get into the rally with his Lotus, but unfortunately he threw it into a tree sideways. So that didn't go down so well. Fleming had poor Alan in such a state of fear after the first stage. So he took Alan round to the back of a service van and offered him a wee snort of vodka. And he pretended to have a couple of shots from the optic, pop riveted to the inside door of the back door of the tranny van. With the added bit of slur in his words and a wee stumble now again, then Alan was up the high doe, fearing for his safety clearly in the passenger seat of Trevor Fleming's car around Lurgan Park. But after the finish, Trevor clearly immediately sobered up, and Alan was offered a drink from the water-filled optic in the back of the van. So it's just a great story. I love that. And of course, Ivor and Alan had a very cold and drafty run home with no passenger window fitted in the Lotus. At that stage, you drove your car home. You didn't take it home. So that's the sort of stories that we love, and no better man than the next guest to do that. So Cathal Curley dominated Irish rallying in the late 60s and early 70s. So starting with a win on the Texaco Rally in 1969, the first major one, I suppose. He had already won the Ulster Championship a couple of times. He went on to win all Irish internationals at least once, and the Manx in 74, which was probably his most successful year. So without further ado, let's welcome in Mr. Cathal Curley. Cathal, how are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful, Trevor, and just like to say hello to everyone who has got the time, the patience to tune into our program tonight, because it's maybe going to try some people's patience, maybe also their principles, Trevor, when we tell some of the stories that we have here. You know.
Those are the stories we want. We're not too worried about finishing first or second and all of that. It's all all the shenanigans we're interested in, all the handlings you get into over the years. I'm sure there's a few of those. And no doubt when we start to look at who's watching and the comments, lots of you watching already. I'm surprised. I wasn't actually going to do a show tonight on Good Friday, thinking there wouldn't be that many tuned in live, but we have plenty of people here. Hi, Neil James, all the way from Wales, and Sean Thurston's there and good to go.
Very welcome.
Sean Cohn could set my clock to, you see, that's the co-driver. I have to start, and the countdown does run to 7:30. You can time me on it and set your clocks to it. Even Trevor and Cathal, will be some stories from this man. There might be one or two. We'll see what form he's in. He might go all quiet on us. Who knows?
Trevor, this is all to be accepted as a kind of a confidential scene, because I don't want any liable situations arising out of some of my stories, because some of them wouldn't have been just entirely keeping with the law.
Well, those are the best stories, really, but we don't want anybody to hang themselves on this show when we're live to the world, Cathal. We're live to the world here. So if you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, please send a comment. If you know this man and you got some dodgy tales or some reminders of dodgy tales, don't be afraid to type them into the chat box as well. We'll do our best to get through as many as possible as we go through it. So John Skinner's watching from the Isle of Man. Who else have we got?
What a wonderful place, Trevor. What a wonderful rally.
Yeah, I got some stories I want to ask you about in that one, definitely. Big Mick's watching, Big Mick 11 as well.
Hi, Mick.
That's a funny story, the 11 bit. You'll like this one as well. Just talking about other stories. One of my favourite ones in Donegal. You know Highland Radio? Cathal used to broadcast
indeed,
the rally. So you'd go up there and you'd got Charlie Collins and Seamus McGettigan. The boys would be out doing the stage ends and fantastic job. Everything was
Yeah.
great. And then the rally would finish, but you'd still be listening in. I remember they were talking about somebody whose birthday it was. And the DJ said, and it's a big shout out to Pat, Pat McCourt up there in Buncrana. Pat, it's amazing you're 111 today. How good is that? That's fantastic. And well done, happy birthday. I'm going to play Charlie Pride, the Crystal Chandeliers for you. So up comes Charlie Pride and the music's playing. About 30 seconds later, the music fades down. And he says, oh, Pat, I've just realised that you're not 111, you're ill. Sorry about that. I hope you get well soon. That was in Highland Radio.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it wasn't. That's one of your stories anyway. But there we go. That's Big Mick 11. Evening
Yeah.
the Scottish Borders for Robin's there as well. Good to see you, Robin. So what are happening here as well, Cathal? People are tagging other people to get them to watch and look at it live.
Yes.
Dennis Farrell's watching. Good to have you here, Dennis. Ian McCarthy's listening and work. That is the right approach. We like that as well. Hi, Gary. Hope you're well. Damien Garvey's looking forward to it. Good old Damien. Met that man years ago at a quiet junction, and he told us a story about getting a different brand of cigarettes from his co-driver, depending on his stage performance. So you need to just enlighten us on that one then.
Yeah, well, would you want me to do it now?
Oh, you may as well.
Well, thank you for your question, and you are very, very accurate. There were two brands of cigarettes which were popular. There were Silk Cut, which were very weak, and you would have required some sort of a poultice on your throat to get a drag out of them. And there was Major, which every time you took a drag out of it, the things in front of you started to circle with a light head. So Austin and myself did this deal that if he thought I did a good stage, I got a Major, which was very satisfying. And when he thought that it was maybe only on 9/10 instead of 10/10, I got a Silk Cut. And many's the debate we had, Trevor. When I thought I was doing my best and I got a Silk Cut, I'd always reply to him and say, well, maybe the next stage I'll let you in to drive and we'll see how you go. But I says, I think if you're driving, we're going to run out of Silk Cut. You know, you'll be getting the soft cigarette.
I can't believe that man, in the job he was in, would encourage you to smoke at all. Like, what was going on there?
Well, do you know, Trevor, whenever we did the Welsh International, the window of the car, the side window of the car would constantly get a knock. Austin, yes? Have you any wakey-wakies? No, I haven't. Oh, you're a liar, Austin. You must have a wakey-wakies. The International Welsh Rally, Trevor, started, and it wasn't like the circuit. It started on Friday at midday and it finished on Sunday evening on a racetrack.
Uh-huh.
And it was non-stop. It was it was so punishing. You know, that Will Sparrow, I remember, who was an excellent driver in his day, fell asleep. It was horrific, the amount of driving that you had to do. And it went on from Friday afternoon or Friday midday until Sunday midday. Now, the circuit was different. At least you got to bed on Saturday night, you know. But there was no bed on a Saturday night in the Welsh International. And I remember one time I got tired. And Pat McCourt was actually my co-driver that year because something happened that Austin couldn't make it. Austin was with me on the first one. And I said to Pat, you may drive for a bit because I'm really exhausted. So Pat's driving and I'm on the Tulip. And I see this is about 4:00 in the morning, and this is a fact. And I said to Pat, I noticed in the Tulip, you know, about a half a mile phone box on the left. So I said to Pat, half a mile phone box on the left. And he turned around to me and he says, why? Do you want to make a call? And that's his true. I'm sure Pat McCourt's watching this tonight. That's an absolute fact. Why, he says, at 4:00 in the morning, do you want to make a call?
That's a bizarre rally then, if those hours are mad. So did you have any wee wakey-wakies?
Trevor, we're not allowed to disclose that type of information publicly. I'm sorry.
Medical information will stay
I
for the
mean, whenever Austin was interviewed when we were over test driving the Stratos at an MOD track in the UK, and the BBC crew were there, and we Austin and myself had a few runs around the track, and then we pulled up to do an interview with the guys, and one of them said, I wouldn't get into that vehicle if I was getting £1 million. And of course, he turned to Austin and he says, how did you feel about sitting in the passenger side? And Austin said something like, well, we've been together for 8 or 10 years and we trust each other and so on and so forth. And the guy said to him, and what do you do? He says, well, I suppose in a manner, he says, you could call me a drug dealer. Oh, he says, but that's in the medical sense. Austin cleared up almost immediately. I was looking at him. I mean, he hesitated for a few seconds after he said he was a drug dealer. And the guy, geez, we have a drug dealer here. Yeah. Austin said, that's the medical sense I'm speaking about. I'm a pharmacist,
Funny. So this is Austin Frazer, your co-driver for many years. We didn't really clear that up at the start.
I'm told at this moment in time, Trevor, that Austin and Doreen are watching the program.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And Austin has been not too well recently. He's had a touch of Alzheimer's. And Austin Frazer was the gem of gems, a co-driver who stood by you night and day, who seemed to do everything right. And he was co-driven by a reasonably hot-headed, maybe even ill-tempered type of a driver. And I remember one day we were fairly successful, Trevor, and I don't mean that in a boastful sense, but we were fairly successful, and that was the cause of it being seated number one in quite a few events. Mm-hmm. And we were seated number one, and I think it was the Cork 20 International. Yep. And we went and we did the first stage, and we came to the end of the first stage, and Austin handed in his card, and the marshal put down the time on it. He gets the card back, and I'm just moving off, and Austin says, oh, CB, hold it, that guy's made a mistake. Of course, my reaction, Trevor, was, Jesus Christ, he's made a mistake. And Austin turns around to me and he says, right, just cool down. Just cool down and reverse the car back. So I'm raging at this stage. He's a minute out. He's giving us an extra minute. Uh-huh. So reverse the car back to the marshal, who was completely unintentional on what he did. He just made a slight error. So Austin said, excuse me, I don't mean to trouble you, but I made our time as 10:11 and you made it down as 11:11. Would you mind just checking there? And the boy, Austin, I'm so sorry. You're right, Austin. Excuse me, please. I'm very sorry. Let me adjust your card. So he adjusts the card and he gives the card back. And Austin looked over at me and he says, I hope you've learned some lesson there. That's how you do it. You don't go back effing and blinding at a marshal. That's how you do it. In a civilized, mannerly sort of way. So what could I do? I had no answer for him at that stage, Trevor.
And did you learn the lesson?
Oh, I think I did. Would you believe we were together for over 10 years? Yeah. And we never, ever had a row or an argument. You couldn't argue with the man.
No.
I mean, if no matter what he said or what he did, he was always right. He was a perfectionist, of course. And I remember, I'll tell you a funny story now, Trevor, if I may.
No, if it's funny, we don't want to know. Of course you can.
it's not, well, it's funny now,
Okay.
but Trevor, it was really special. We were doing the Manx International, and we had worked away up to second overall. And I was in a Mark 1 escort. And Colin Malkin, who was the works routes driver, and a lovely guy, was leading the rally. But there was very little in it. But going to the last stage, we broke a drive shaft on the back. And there was a delay in getting it repaired.
Yep.
To our good luck, the last stage was cancelled. But because the car wasn't drivable, we were OTL, overtime lateness.
Yep.
I was due in at 6 o'clock to the prom in the Isle of Man in Douglas, and we were in at about 2 or 3 minutes past 6. But rules are rules.
Yep.
So we were excluded. And at this stage, Trevor, very early in my career, I'd maybe have been saving for 6 months to do the Manx International. So anyway, we were out of the rally. Excuse me. And myself and Mervyn Johnson and Austin and Harry Johnson, having rested, Harry, were in the one room. So I got this brainwave. If I went down to rally headquarters and I got my time card, casually lifted it out of the bunch, would it work? So I goes down to rally headquarters. This guy's coming in and this guy's stamping and marking and writing and so on and so forth. And I'm just casually going through the section of cards that are on the right-hand side of the table. And I get the card in relation to Cathal C.B. Curley. And I took it out and I put it under my jacket and I left. And I went up to the hotel or the B&B that we were in.
Yeah.
And I produced the card to Harry, Mervyn and Austin. And Austin said to me, rather amazed, "What have you done?" And I said, "I've got my time card." And I says, "If we adjust the time in it, we'll be okay." I am having nothing to do with that card, and I'm not getting back into that car again. I says, "That's taking it a bit far, isn't it?" And Harry Johnson's there, and I said to Harry, God rest him, "What do you think, Harry?" And Harry looked at me and he says, "Well, I suppose," he says, "you have the card, you may do something with it." But Austin Frazer was not for moving, Trevor. He was not for moving. So I said, "Right, okay, I'll make a confession. We'll go down and we'll speak to the clerk of the course." And the fellow who was clerk of the course that year was a fellow called Roy Lightfoot. So I went down to him. I asked for a private meeting with the clerk of the course, and myself and Austin Frazer went in to his office or to his headquarters. And there we were. And he said, "Yes, Cathal, can I help you? This is my second or third year competing in the Manx."
Yes.
I said, "I've done a terrible thing." "Calm yourself down," he says. I said, "I can't. I've done a terrible thing. I want to kill him." He says, "What have you done?" I says, "I've stolen my time card out of the bunch." And I said, "I was going to adjust it because we're excluded. And I've been saving for 6 months to do the rally, Roy." "Calm yourself down," he says. "What's the problem?" I said, we're 3 or 4 or 5 minutes over lateness." "My goodness," he says, "that's a pity. Give me the card." So I said, "There's the card. What time should you have been in at?" I said, "Roy, We should have been in about 6 o'clock and we weren't in the 5 past. I'll adjust that, he says. He adjusted to 6 o'clock. And Austin Fraser and I left. And Austin Fraser walked up and he said, Steve McQueen couldn't have put on a better show, he says, in a movie than the show that you're after putting on there now. And I went to Royal Life. We finished second overall in the rally. I went to Royal Lifewood afterwards and I thanked him. And I did it the next year, a couple of years after that, and I won it. And he was the first up to congratulate me. And what he said to me, Trevor, was, will you ever forget the time card adjustment? You know, and that's a fact. That is absolute fact.
I've no doubt about it.
What an action. I mean, I should have been in prison in Isle of Man.
Well, Austin was with you when we went down to see the clerk of course, then I assume to get...
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, listen, he would do nothing unless the clerk of the course rubber stamped everything. Hello, Doreen. You have a very, very, very decent man there, Doreen, I can tell you.
Yeah, Nigel, wonders Nigel heard that story. I'm sure he has. But
we didn't tell it to too many people, Trevor, but I thought, you know, I've passed the 80 years of age mark, so I'm not worried about what's going to happen to me now, at least as far as rallying is concerned, you know.
Well, that was the problem. So Galway, when we did the 50th anniversary for the Galway International, you were having a COVID-friendly family meal that night, so you couldn't join us live, so that's why we did the pre-record for the Big 80, which is the first time you've probably had the chance to celebrate one of your big birthdays, because you're always away, aren't you? You're always flat out.
Always was away on the 5th of February. And believe it or not, Trevor, my dad was born on the 5th of February. My mum was born on the 5th of February. And I was born on the 5th of February. Different years, of course, let me say.
So you're in your 81st year, smoking about in an Audi RS4.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way you do, like.
Yes, I wouldn't say smoking about, Trevor. I bought the car, or rather my son Connor bought it for me in July or August of 2019.
That was very generous of him, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? Connor's a very decent young fella, I think anyway, but I suppose we all think that about our own. And I got it in July or August of 2019, and I have 2,100 miles on it. He said to me, listen, Dad, it's going to be a nice weekend, Easter weekend. Friday's going to be good. Saturday's going to be good. And Sunday. I said, did I see a forecast about snow on the Monday? I said, just let the car sit where she is. We'll get her out whenever the summer really comes to us in the month of June and July. So I have 2,000 miles on it, Trevor.
Brilliant. I just want to go back. I just want to go back to Austin, if you don't mind, because I got my first ever car, and it was... damage repairable from Hugo Kahn. You remember Hugo Kahn over the years?
Yes.
Damage repairable Fiesta Ford Pop it was. In beige one as well, a nice line down the side of her. So Alan Spears, you arrived up at Cowan's when the transporter came in. You had to be there to pick your car, and you had to buy it on the spot.
Yes.
So Alan Spears is with me. He fixed it for me. So I got the car on the road. One of the first trips I took in that car was to go and see Austin Frazer, to ask him advice for a 17-year-old lad trying to do his best as a navigator co-driver. And I spent the Saturday afternoon, when I think I've said this before in this show, certainly said it somewhere, I spent a Saturday afternoon with him down at his house, and just a gentleman, and it was just a perfect afternoon for me, having a conversation with a legend who not only was great in the co-driver's seat, but of course we know the story of the creation of the Donegal International Rally, of which he was pivotal.
Absolutely. You said there you had a wonderful time. I don't think there's a human being alive who could refer to Austin Frazer in any other form or fashion except an absolutely true gentleman, you know.
Definitely.
And I must say we had 10 wonderful years. Mind you, Trevor, we had our disappointments too. I mean, we were leading rallies in the early 70s. And the late 60s and early 70s, and we had a failure or some sort of another, or I overdid it maybe, which happened in the odd occasion. I must say the odd occasion that I overdid it, Trevor. It wasn't too bad. I wasn't too sore in the metal work, you know, but we did have a few disappointments, but the man never changed. And I just, you know, I can't I really can't thank him enough for what he did for me,
Perfect.
And he's on. I've got a feeling he's watching me and what I'm doing, and I'm not so sure that he's going to approve of everything. But I'm going to keep him as happy as I can, anyway, because I really and truly own that. He's a
I'm
great
sure.
friend and a great guy.
I know that. I'm sure you'll do him proud as well. Let's see who else is here. So John McKinley's in, an absolute legend.
Put him out.
Throw him out.
Put McGinley out, yeah.
Well, we've been him out. He said you'll need 3 days, not 3 hours.
Yes.
But you're busy on Monday, aren't you? So we need to be going by Monday. That'll do.
Yes.
Who else have we got? Here's somebody else you'll know well. Derek Smith.
Oh goodness me! Now Derek will be correcting my English and my approach, and I'm sure under his breath he'll be saying, "He said the wee bastard's only boasting about himself." But I'm boasting about Austin Fraser. I haven't mentioned myself.
You haven't got on to how good you are yet, Cal, but we'll do that.
No.
Sean, good to have you here. Sean, John Wilson, remember some great times with Cal when he owned the garage in Spencer Road. He bought his first 1300 GT Escort from you.
Hello, John. How are you? Any questions that any of you guys have, provided, and I mean this sincerely, provided that they are regarding sex, drugs, drink, and rock and roll, I'll be only delighted to answer them honestly and truly. Anything else, it doesn't really matter in this world, does it?
They're your special subjects, specialized subjects. Okay.
Yeah. Someone asked Phil Coulter, my good friend, one day, Phil, you're looking good. How do you do it? Is there any secret? Oh, I says, and what's that? He says, very, very simple. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Not necessarily in that order.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily in that order.
My wife's not watching, Travis, you're okay.
Jesse Lyons has sent a text message to say, best wishes to Cathal, always first out of the traps. Because you've a common love of greyhounds, you two, haven't you?
Yeah, I had 4 weaknesses in life, Trevor.
Uh-huh.
4, just the 4. And funny, they were all starting with the word F.
Mm-hmm.
There was fast dogs, fast horses, fast cars, and you'd know what the other one was.
There was one dog called Rally Boys, was quite controversial, I think, a while back as well.
It was, yeah.
We'll not go there tonight, right? Billy McMullen says, is another legend. Mr. McGettigan's here. Hi, Seamus. Good to have you here. Arnie Gormley.
Well, I'm not so sure Seamus is a big fan. I think Seamus maybe a wee bit more orientated towards Vincent Bonner.
Uh-huh.
Seamus wasn't that happy about me winning Donegal 2 or 3 times. But anyway, Seamus, I forgive you for your grudge.
Yeah, it's a good day to forgive people on Good Friday as well. So.
Yes, absolutely, Trevor. Absolutely.
Yeah,
forgive and forget.
Indeed. Forgiveness is right up there. So Arnie Gormley says, sitting here with Anne Gear and Killy Clocker.
Oh my goodness, Anne Gear. And I'm just after selling your brother a 530 BMW.
There you go.
Michael, who as a baby, whenever he was growing up as a baby, he insisted on getting into my car and he used to stand on the front seat while I drove him around Kildyclough. Hello, Michael.
Did you get good profit on it?
We got a wee turn.
I
think, yeah. Great profit days are gone. We're a very humble outfit, Trevor. We work on a small profit and are looking to make a lot of friends.
A lot of friends.
That's our motto.
Do you know this boy Robbie McGurk at all?
Well, only when I break down. And when you break down, if McGurk's not there, you can just pull her over to the one side. If McGurk's there, by hook or by crook or by other means, he'll get you going. An absolute whiz kid.
I thought you were talking about emotionally breaking down. He's your man. He'd help with that as well.
He wouldn't be with 3 bad pennies in one of those scenes, Trevor. Emotion, no. Mechanical. Very much mechanical. But a genius. Absolute genius. Hi, Rob.
Blaine's watching. So he's in the hot tub.
Oh, Blaine.
That's not a bad place to be.
Blaine,
Good
Blaine,
skills.
Blaine is my grandson,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've no doubt. B, I don't call him Blaine. I just call him the short B. B, keep up the good work selling those cars, but don't be interfering with our stock.
The papa sort of give that one away. Mary Kate.
Papa, yes.
Yeah, Mary Kate McBride wants to tell the one about breaking down the Manx rally and almost being disqualified.
Breaking down in the Manx rally and almost being disqualified.
Right. Well, we'll get more information from Mary Kate, and we'll look at that one later.
Mary Kate, I broke down in the Manx rally when we were leading it, and we couldn't we couldn't at the time find out what was wrong. We broke down in the middle of a stage for no reason in the world. The big 3-litre 911 just stopped, bang, and refused to start. And we waited and we tried to start it and we tried to do this and we tried to do that. And that's Austin and me when I say we. No good. Eventually we let it sit for a while. And maybe after half an hour or more, I went over to it and I turned the start and away it went. And Patsy Donaghy, God rest him, that's another great guy, Trevor. Patsy Donaghy was in my service crew. I'll tell you a story about him later on. And Patsy reckoned that the fuel had vaporized in the car. Something had happened and she just cut out and she wouldn't start. And when we got to the end of the stage, of course, we were out of the rally at that stage. But whenever we got to the end of the stage, the car was absolutely perfect. Perfect. I don't know, Mary Kate, if that answers your query or not. I don't know about the other breakdown. Did it involve Mary Kate? Did it involve Sydney Meek in a Mini? And if it did, if you knock in yes, I'll tell the story, certainly, Mary Kate, if that's the one you're referring to.
Why did you tell the story anyway? We're not in a hurry.
Okay. We were doing very well. Chris Slater and John Davenport were in a works car and they were leading the rally.
What sort of year are we talking about, Cal?
Oh, I'd need that now. I would need.
It doesn't matter. Go on ahead.
Well, and when we completed the last stage, we broke another half shaft. Right? So we were finished the last stage, just got out of the last stage and no more. And we were sitting on the side of the road, car wouldn't drive. And who came along? Only the Honourable Mr. Sydney Meek, the father of that lovable young man, Chris Meek. By the way, Chris Meek and my son Connor are big buddies, big friends, on the phones all the time. But anyway, Sydney comes along, and Sydney was always very cool and very calm. What's wrong, Stevie? She's not driving, Sydney. I think it must be a drive shaft. Well, I've only got a Mini. I said, be difficult to tow with a Mini. Sydney, no, we'll tow all right. Get the rope out there. You're just going into the promenade now. I said, that's right. So he says, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll tow you into the prom. And he says, when it comes to the area where you're to turn into the prom properly, he says, give a sharp shot on the brake and break the rope or take my spare wheel out of the Mini, which was the only place we could anchor the tow rope to.
Yeah.
And I did exactly as Sydney told me. When I saw the turning in, I had the engine going, vroom, 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 and it turned in. And when it turned into the control, I stopped the car. And the car refused to start. Or rather, I refused to let her start. So we just got out and we pushed her into the bed. Now, we had about 3 or 4 hours for the service crew to do something then. But on my way down the prom, John Davenport and Chris Slater had already checked in and they were leading the rally in the works car. I was second overall at this stage, but only 8 or 10 seconds behind them. That was okay. We got in. The boys got to work. Patsy Donaghy and Hillary got to work, pulled out the diff, put in a new shaft, got the car going 100%, and we are back in business again. Over the stages the next morning, we took the lead off John Davenport and Chris Slater, and we were leading the rally.
Yeah.
And then there was a break for service. And John Davenport came to me in service, and he said, Mr. Curley, I just want to tell you, we saw your car being towed into Park Fermi. That's against rally regulations. But he says, I'll tell you what, if you win the rally and we are second, we will be objecting to you. I said, John, whatever the hell you like, we're out to win the rally, whether you like it or not. We're not slow enough. But it got very hot between the two of us, driving-wise. I don't mean in a physical sense. And I came to a second or third last stage, and I came into a right and a left on a green iron bridge. He turned right over the bridge and then immediately left. Now, I was on the limit at this stage, but at that particular corner, I was just a fraction over the limit. And the car spun coming out of the left-hander and went into a gully. And we lost 2 or 3 minutes trying to get the car out of the gully. And we finished second. Yeah. And therefore, there was no objection from Mr. Davenport. But that's actual fact, Trevor. Davenport came to me, and he was, British Leyland from top to bottom. But he came to me and he told me, if you win the rally, we saw you being towed in along the prom, and we will be objecting to you. So they maybe needed to win the rally, Trevor, more than I needed to win.
That must have been 1970 then. I reckon it was 70.
Yes,
so
yes.
Only 51 years ago, like.
yes, so that's not too bad.
Not too bad then, if you can remember some of it. Okay. Who else? Neil James is saying that racetrack in Wales could have been Clando. You might not remember it.
Yes, it could have very... What a way to finish a rally. You started on Friday afternoon, and you drove all day Friday, all night Friday night, all day Saturday, and all night on Saturday night. Yeah. It was actually, it was cruel. It was really and truly cruel,
Was that rally not supposed to be fun, no?
Trevor, I'm a fun guy, as everyone that knows me knows. But to get into a car at 12 o'clock on Friday and to get out of it at 4 o'clock on Sunday evening, having exerted yourself on stages and whatnot, it was all forestry stages, you see. But
yeah, of course.
It wasn't fun. No, it wasn't fun. It was required a big effort.
How did you enjoy the forests?
Fabulous. I would say, Trevor, in the early days, they were all forests in my early days, and I would say that's where I acquired, if you could call it so, the art of driving a rally car, because I would apply what we were doing in the forest as much as I could up to the limit on the tarmac. You know?
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, I think my early skills were all developed in forests. I mean, it was only means of rallying in those days. I mean, rallies like the Taxico and the Starlight and the Northern Lights. I mean, they were all forestry rallies.
Yeah.
But they were very early in my career. They'd have been in the late-ish 60s or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And 2021, Trevor, is the 50th anniversary of the first of the international rallies in Donegal.
Okay.
Excuse me. So they're kind of colliding with the Galway centenary.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And excuse me, and of course, 2021 is not going to be running. Mm-hmm. So they've extended it to 2022.
Yeah.
And I noticed in one of your ads there that when you were talking about the Northern Ireland rally situation,
Yeah.
that we'd like to see you in 2022. And I was thinking to myself, I hope I'm still around in 2022, Trevor, because
What?
it's they had to postpone their 50th anniversary this year in Donegal, and they're going to run it next year. And Trevor, I have spies. I'm inexplicably connected to the CIA and the KGB,
Uh-huh.
and I have got spies in all areas. And I think there's wee things being prepared for 2022
Uh-huh.
regarding myself.
Uh-huh.
This is not a boast now. I'm not supposed to know anything about this, but there's leaks. It's like a bucket with a hole in the bottom of it. There's leaks everywhere,
Uh-huh.
and I think there's going to be, if I live, and I hope I do, for the next 18 months or thereabouts, there's going to be something a wee bit special for the 2022 Donegal Rally.
How did you get on the last time you were in Donegal in 04?
Terrible. I did. The only thing about it, Trevor, was I did a very good deal. There's me, the old grey-haired boy. Of course, Ronan on my right. He's fairly grey. Connor seems to. Well, he's a bit greyer now. That was that 2004, Trevor. That's
2004,
17 years. That's
It is,
17 years ago. I bought that car of Ernest Kidney. Ernest Kidney went to David Sutton, and he got a full works Mark II Escort built. He got a Transit twin wheel van, and all the bits and pieces. And I don't know what happened, whether it was Ernest Kidney's papa or dad who wanted to put a stop to this, and the vehicle was for sale. And in 2003 or 2004, 2003 it must have been, they had an asking price of £20,000 for the entire outfit. And a friend of mine, who has since departed this world, called Sean Mahan.
Yeah, but this is way back in 1980, surely, Cal, wasn't it? When you originally bought the car. Yeah, 1980.
Yes.
So it was this car originally here, a stunning looking car.
Oh no, Trevor. This was 2004.
Oh, 2004. Okay, sorry. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I bought the car of him in maybe 2003. But we were doing Donegal in 2004, and Sidney Meek was looking after the car actually.
Right.
But it was a works David Sutton car, who were fairly familiar with preparing the works Ford cars for Roger Clark and David Single Morris and these guys.
Yep.
Like it was a supercar, but Trevor, it was on fuel injection.
Right.
And at that stage in 2003, they hadn't perfected the fuel injection.
Uh-huh.
And it would go like the clobbers for one stage, and it'd be a total mess on the next stage. 2 cylinders, 3 cylinders, spitting, missing, and whatnot. Eventually, before I sold it, Sidney Meek removed the fuel injection and put it onto Weber's.
Yeah.
And then it was a decent car. But the deal on that one, Trevor, it was very funny. Sean Mahan, who had a company in Kerryduff called Shawson Supply, he supplied marine engines for boats and whatnot, and Sean was going fairly well. He would have spent his early years in the Freshman show band, which was, in my day, Trevor, was one of the best show bands in the country. But anyway, myself and Phil Coulter and Sean Mahan decided that we would go down to Killarney for Easter to watch the Circuit of Ireland.
Uh-huh.
And so we're coming back, and we pull into Hayden's Hotel in Ballinasloe.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Mahan's there, and he says to me, would you not consider going back again? This must have been 83. And I said I would if I had a sponsor. And at this stage, I knew that Ernest Kidney was looking for 20,000 for the van, the bits and pieces in the car. So he says, how much would you need to go back rallying? I said, I need £10,000. Because I knew that if I bought the car for 20, and I could use his 10 to pay the half of it, I could raise the other 10, and at the end of a year or 2 years, we wouldn't lose money on the car.
Yep.
So Sean Mahan said to me, he said, and he was a very funny guy. He was a very small guy, but he was a very funny guy. And he says to me, "What's in this for me?" I said, "Well, Sean, it would be my intentions to put Shaw's and Supply, which was the name of the company, to put Shaw's and Supply on the map." Right, that sounds good to me.
This is the car here. This
is the car here.
Yeah.
That is her.
In 1980, that is. In Sligo. That's Sligo in 1980.
Is that what that is? Well, yeah, Shaw's and Supply. It's on the front of it there.
There you go.
I might be getting my dates mixed up, Trevor.
That's all right. Don't you worry.
But anyway, that was what was in it for Shaw. I was going to put Shaw's and Supply on the map. So we rallied for a year, 18 months. We didn't have a lot of success. We finished second overall to Ger Buckley in the Cork International. And every time I took 5 seconds of Buckley, the next stage, he took 10 of me. And I was driving on the absolute limit or past it, in my opinion, anyway, Trevor. Then Buckley knew every stage, you know. So we finished second overall. And Sean was up on the stage, and he recalled the days that the freshmen used to pack this place. We were in the town hall in Cork, and Sean says, "We used to pack this place with the band. Our band was so good, you know." But anyway, Trevor, after a year or 18 months, we decided that I had lost interest in it, and it wasn't doing anything for me. So we decided to pack it in.
Yeah.
So we went and we interviewed Sean. Sean says, "Oh, I can understand. You know, there's other things to life besides driving a rally car." But he says, "It's just one thing." And I said, "Yeah, Sean." He says, "You told me you were going to put Shaw's and Supply on the map." He says, "You went closer to fucking putting it off the map with your expenses and your rally." And that's the exact words he used, Trevor. I'm not pulling any punches. God rest him, he's dead too. I've lost a lot of friends. I suppose when you come to 80 years of age, you know, a lot of the people that you knew, I mean, when you think about Robert McBurney and you think of Ronnie McCartney and you think of Robin Lyons and all the good guys, you know, who were there, you know, along with me, and now there's very few left. I'm very glad to say and see that Adrian and Derek Boyd are still about. Very good friends of mine. And Adrian Boyd, an absolute true gentleman, always was in his rally days. Nothing short of a true gentleman.
And
Derek
a quick man as well.
Pardon?
A quick man as well.
Oh, like whenever we were seated behind or in front of Beattie and Adrian, it took a big effort now to hold Adrian Boyd or to beat Adrian Boyd. He was a fabulous driver. And Derek wouldn't be that far behind him, but Adrian was so quiet and so reserved. Like, he was just a quiet person, but an absolute fabulous driver. Yeah. Accompanied, of course, by an excellent co-driver and Dr. Beattie. I better say something good about him because I nearly wrecked his Porsche and Dungannon.
You nearly wrecked it.
Yes. Oh, just nearly, Trevor. A wee bit of a dent in the front, and I think it did the farmer's property more damage than it did the Porsche. I took out a few fencing posts.
How many fencing posts died that day?
Probably maybe 6 or 8 or 10. I just didn't count them as I went along, Trevor, because I was moving kind of rapidly at the time, you know.
It's probably a laughing matter now, but I bet poor Beattie wasn't too happy at that particular time. This is the car here.
Poor Beattie wasn't happy at all, Trevor. No. Not very happy. He wasn't happy at all, and he could justify it. And you know, Trevor, to this day, people have asked me what happened. The bend that I took, the left-hand bend that I took, it felt like I just hit a patch of oil. I mean, I never put a mark in the car up to that, but unfortunately on the first stage or the second stage in the rally, we got a puncture and we had to stop and we had to change the wheel on Atlantic Drive, and we lost. I mean, I wouldn't be good at changing wheels. Patsy and Hillary used to do that job, you know, and Beattie would probably be a lot better with a scalpel than he would be at changing a wheel, you know. So we lost a lot of time, and we were maybe trying to make up time. Desi Nutt was leading, and Desi had just went into a ferocious lead. And we said, well, it would be a credit to us at our age and stage if we could finish second. So we were attempting to finish second. We weren't hanging about by any means, but I don't know what happened on the bend. I hands up, my fault, nobody else to blame, but I don't know what happened. If someone said to me, well, you were too quick, but I didn't feel that had anything to do with it. I mean, I really didn't seem to make an effort to get around the bend. You know, I mean, it was a minor bend. It wasn't a bad kink, you know, but it wasn't to be. Unfortunately, it ended up with the farmer looking for compensation for barbed wire and fencing posts.
It's fair to say that Beatty was trying to slow you down a bit on that rally then, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it
Yes,
just a case of Cathal just being ultra competitive and just
yes, Trevor. I used to say to people, you know, you finish second, that does nothing to the history books. You finish first, you become a legend. And I remember in one of those stages, Trevor, we were coming down a fairly wide road, a fairly main road, and we had to take. I won't forget it because I remember beating it. We had to fork off to a much narrower road on the left. And I came down, and when I was driving in my young days, Trevor, I excelled on late braking. Adrian Boyd will actually confirm that in the circuit in 1972 or 73 in the lightweight BMW.
Yeah.
My advantage was I was a late breaker. And I reckon that the later you brake, the more time you would save, provided you got round the obstacle in front of you with the late braking. And we seem to manage that on a lot of occasions anyway. But I'm coming down this main road, Beatty's sitting beside me, and here I come and I set the vehicle up to shoot her into the left. And I shot her into the left, and there was a big leafy ditch on my right, and she just tore the leaves off for a bit, and all I could hear coming over the intercom was, Jesus Christ, Beatty. And that's all he said. He didn't say you're going too quick or nothing else. All I heard was, Jesus Christ, you know. But we made it round the bend all right, Trevor, you know. That was the important part.
So the idea of Beatty having this Porsche was to go on events and have a lovely time with the like of Bjorn Valdegard, Walter Roll, Stig Blomqvist, and they would all go and have a lovely tour. And then I just remember Cathal getting in and absolutely door handling the poor car.
That'd be right enough. But I used to say to Beatty, Walter Roll was one of my idols. He was a great driver, and he drove for Porsche. And Walter Roll won 2 international rallies. And I said to Beatty, jokingly, you know, I said, Beatty, how would you rate Walter and myself? On past, present, or future performances, as he says. I says, well, on my record up to date, I says, I've 6 or 8 international rallies won. I think I'd prefer Walter, he said. You know, no, not a single compliment for me, Trevor. But anyway, that was Beatty. Beatty and I get on like a house on fire.
Are you asking me or asking my legs? Is probably what he was thinking.
Yes.
But yeah, you were chatting away in Deja Vu last year, so I thought I'd just expand the story a little bit. So times are good again anyway. I just want to go back to...
You want to hear a really good, genuine story about rallying?
Of course I do.
Right. Austin Frazer and Doreen and myself and Patsy Donaghy and Hilary Woods and Michael Gormley, and all those 3 guys are dead. We went over to do the Welsh International Rally. And it was a time, Trevor, I'm sure you recall, you mightn't have been born at the time, but I'm sure you recall it. It was the time of the Aberfan disaster where the coal mountain slipped and took out 16 children or 22 children and a teacher and so on and so forth. So when we got over to Cardiff, we had a wee bit of time in hand because there was no racking in those days.
Mm-hmm.
So our crew were always, Trevor, carrying on. There was always a bit of carry on with the boys, you know. You could be shaving with toothpaste because they used to suck the shaving gear out of your tube and insert toothpaste into it. You'd be thinking to yourself, geez, that's very funny stuff, that. Or alternatively, you could be cleaning your teeth with shaving cream, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there was always carry-ons going on, tied up the army or short and so on and so forth. But anyway, Austin and I left and went to Aberfan. And I said to Austin on the way back, I said, Trevor or Austin, these boys are going to be able to carry on, you know. You need to be ready for them now whenever you go back. So we came back that night, had a meal and went upstairs. And I was wondering just what nonsense and rascality the boys had got up to, because they were quite handy at getting the key to my room or your room or any room, you know. They had all the lines and all the excuses for the receptionist in the hotel, you know. So anyway, I goes upstairs. We said good night to each other. I went upstairs. The boys were already in bed, service crew, and Austin, myself went up and Doreen, and I went into the bedroom. And my rules in the rally and Trevor was I had to have a single room because I'm a light sleeper, and if there's someone in the room and they snore or they make any other foul noises, then I'd be waking all night. So I was in a room on my own. So I went into the room, checked my case, checked my clothes, checked my toilet bag, checked everything. And I said, well, checked the wardrobe. Everything was dead on. I said, Jesus, you know, that's a surprise. So undressed and went to get into bed. Trevor, no bed. No bed in the room.
Yeah.
The bed was completely gone. Right? Fact. So I said, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do now? So the boys were across the corridor just opposite my door. They were there. So I got over to the door. All I could hear was, don't answer him. Don't answer him. Let him knock away. Right, boys, come on. Come on. I have a rally to do tomorrow. Don't answer him. I said, look, I'm going to put this door in if you don't answer me. No, don't speak to him. That was all I heard with my ear to the door. Well, Trevor, fact, I goes back to my door, which was about possibly, it was a fairly wide corridor, maybe about 8 foot or 10 foot wide. And I took a run at the door, put my shoulder to it, as quick as I could go. And in went me, and in went the door, and in went the door frame. Honestly, that's a fact. So that's okay, Trevor. There's my bed, sitting propped up against the wall. Right? Well, of course, I lifted the bed, brought it into my room, got my bed clothes and that, and got sorted out and got into bed. Now, I went to reception night before. I said, I don't want to call before 11 tomorrow morning because I wanted to lie in because this was a Welsh rally and it was a long rally. So it was okay. 8 o'clock, Trevor. I said, who's there? This is the manager. I said, what do you want? I need to speak to you. So I says, okay, you need to speak to me. I said, have they not paid or have I not paid or what's happened here? So I opened the door and he says, I'm going to have to ask yourself and your crew to leave the room, to leave the hotel. And I want paid for the damage to the door. I said, what door are you talking about? He says, that door there. I says, my God, what happened there? Oh, he says, you don't know about it. I says, I certainly do not. He says, are those chaps in that room along with you? I says, I beg your pardon. I have nothing to do with those people. I says, I don't know who they are. Oh my goodness, Mr. Curley, I'm very sorry. I thought they were part of your crew. I says, not at all. But I said, I heard serious ructions last night. Whatever carry on they were at. He says, that's the carry on they were at. And the next person comes down the alleyway or down from the route was Austin and Dory. I said, those are my people, Mr. and Mrs. Frazer. He says, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But he says, these others are going out. They're not getting back into this hotel again. And I'm going to be charging them for the repairs to this door. I says, I'm quite right, you are too, sir. And charged them plenty because I says they kept me awake half the night. Would you believe it? Would you believe it?
I think in fairness, you're probably right to panic about not having a bed, which would be the last one for about 72 hours. So
I know. I mean, I thought, my God, they haven't touched my room, they haven't touched my clothes, they haven't touched my shaving bag or nothing else, you know. And here I was, turned around to get into bed, and there was no bloody bed in the room, you know. So that was only one example. Trevor, can I say hello to a Mr. Stanley Baxter, who is 5 years older than me, and he would be my number one fan. And Stanley is tuned into you this evening. And Stanley had a wee bit of bad health there a number of years ago. He had a stroke. And he was on about the John Lyons interview and how good it was and the crack it was and so on and so forth. And he's 85 or 86, Stanley. But Stanley has been a number one fan of mine for I don't know how many years. So I just want to say hello, Stanley. I hope you're enjoying the show. And I hope that you have the patience to stay with the show.
hi, Stanley. Good to have you here. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And 85 years of age. That's fantastic. And he,
and a rally fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
He's 85. He's had a stroke, and he can go back and he can quote me rallies that I did 50 years ago or 49 years ago, and he can call. And I don't know what happened. And you went round the corner and you had a flat wheel, but you could round all right. Oh, he can come up with stories that don't even register with me, Trevor. You know,
he's a super fan. That's the call.
He's a super fan and a lovely gentleman. He worked in the MOT Centre, Stanley, for a while, and he ran a charity auction one time in the theatre in the Waterside. And we got a certain amount of things up for sale. It was a sales. And Stanley says to me, Cathal, would you do the sales? I said, Stanley, I never done this before. I mean, to stand up to be an auctioneer, I says, it's a knack in its own. I think you'd be able to do it, he says, and I would appreciate it if you would do it. So I says, okay, Stanley. Well, we had the greatest night, Trevor, and I'm sure Stanley's smiling now. And Stanley turned round to me at the end of the night and he says, I'll tell you one thing, he says, if I'm ever selling my house, you're going to be the auctioneer for it.
You're the man.
Yeah, that's it.
You could
Getting back to Galway, Trevor. Rally stories. People maybe don't want to listen to me saying hello to all my friends. Rally stories. Galway rally. Did it, I think, about 4 times. I certainly did it 3 times, and I won it 3 times. Mm-hmm. Although I'm only down for winning it once. I'll not recall the second time or the first time I won it. When Eamon Carter came up to me, Mervyn Johnson and Harry were second, and Austin and I were first, and we were about 2 or 3 minutes ahead of Mervyn. Mervyn was very consistent, but he was just maybe a wee bit slower than me. Not a lot now, and a very good driver too. But anyway, come up to the table and the boys were congratulating me. The rally was over.
This is a story you told the last time, I think, Cathal.
Yes.
Yeah,
but is that recorded on this or?
Oh no, you can go on ahead and tell it again.
Well,
it's a good story.
I'll
end the shortened version of it.
Right, okay. So anyway, we're sitting at the table. We have rally 1, and Eamon Carter comes up and he says, "CB, yes, Eamon, a bad news for you." I says, what? Goodness me, that's an awful thing to say to anybody. You've got bad news for me. What's the bad news? You've won the rally, but you haven't won it. Right? Can you explain that to me now? That seems a bit, one is contradicting the other. You've won it, but you haven't won it. He says, we've had a terrible mess up with the time clocks. And he says, if I award the rally to you, I have the times to change for 76 other competitors. And I said, what's the answer to that? And he said, well, Mervyn, who was second, if we declared him as the winner, yours is the only adjustment we have to make.
Mm-hmm.
And Mervyn Johnson turns around at the table and he said, what was that, Eamon? And Eamon says, well, Mervyn, we're going to be declaring you as the winner. Mervyn Johnson's words at the table was, absolutely, no way, Eamon. Are you kidding me? No way. CB has won the rally. We were comparing notes all through the rally. CB has won the rally and I can't accept it. And Harry Johnson, God rest him, he's dead. Mervyn's co-driver says, Mervyn, shut your fucking mouth. Right? And Mervyn was awarded the rally, and Mervyn's alive and well. I don't know if he's watching the show or not now, but he's alive and well. The next year we won it, and the third year, Trevor, in the BMW, the lightweight BMW, we have 2 stages to go. We're well in front, and the service crew decided, do we need tyres? And I said, no, I think the tyres are okay. No, it says, we'll not take a chance. We'll just change the 2 backs. They changed the 2 backs. We went to the second last stage, and a rear wheel passed me going down an incline. Mm-hmm. And I heard the thump of the car falling onto its lower back end. Stopped. We had enough time to stop, get the wheel. We brought the wheel up, but the studs on the hub with the wheel coming off had bent a bit, and we couldn't get the wheel onto the hub because some of the bolts, had a twist or a bend in them, and the wheel wouldn't fit. We had to sit there till the service crew came. So we lost the rally that year also.
Yeah.
You know?
Those 2 stories you told the last time, so interesting. There's no controversy around that, so it must all be accurate. So let me just see who else is here, Cal, before we go on. So Hugh McCarry, fair play to Cathal, massive name in Irish rallying. Who else is there? Eamon and Kathleen O'Hagan are watching.
Thank you. Oh, Eamon and Kathleen. Hello, cousin Kathleen. Kathleen would be about my 5th or 6th cousin.
There we go. 5th or 6th, good. Somebody else reckons that you've never learned. We were talking about earlier, did you learn from being aggressive to that marshal? Apparently, somebody says that maybe you didn't.
No. I wasn't aggressive to the marshal. When Austin and I stopped the car 10 yards after the checkpoint,
well, you're aggressive to Austin. Me,
okay, sorry. Yeah. He's made a mistake, and I said, for Jesus' sake,
right,
he's made a mistake. And Austin just said, calm yourself down, reverse back, and I reversed back. I never opened my mouth to the marshal. And I could solemnly say, Trevor, I never abused a marshal or a motorsport helper, a flag marshal, or in my entire rally career.
I apologise. That was the wrong choice of words from me, but apparently you haven't learned. It's still a wee aggressive streak, according to your son, anyway.
Yes.
And he said...
Sorry, Trevor, go ahead.
Go on. And the same boy sent me a message to say, and said, and indeed, if he gets a wee bit too big-headed, just remind him, in 2004, myself and Nigel cleaned him in Donegal. So... controversy there.
That is coming from a very close relative of mine, Trevor. That is coming from my son Connor.
Yes, I know.
And we did a stage in Donegal. The year that Connor and Ronan and myself did it in the 3 escorts. And we did a stage in Donegal, and Connor said to me, how'd you go there? And I said, Connor, we were 11:20. He says, well, Connie, got a smirk on your face. What time were you? He says, we were 11:08. I says, 12 seconds. And he took 12 seconds off me. So I said to him, Connor, on that particular stage, there were some serious yumps. Up and bang, up and bang. I said, tell me this. Did you slow up on any of those to save the car? Not at all, he says. What would you be slowing up for? I says, right, okay. We have a stage to do again. We did the stage the next time. Connor was the car in front of me. We did the stage the next time, and Rory Kennedy was standing at the time control. Rory wasn't doing it that year. And he was standing at the time control, and he comes back to the two of us again about the one time, and he says, CB, you still have it in you? And I says, why? Well, he says, your son repeated his time of the last 11:08, and he says, you were 11:20 the last time, and this time you were 11:09. I says, thank you, Rory. I says, now, Connor, chew on that one for a while. An old man of 70 years of age, 1 second behind you on the stage. So, Connor, no more smart remarks, please. Oh, dear me.
Very cute, McBride. So, Roisin Boyd said...
Sorry, Trevor, something else too, just for Connor's interest. I retired from rallying when I was 33. Connor's still trying to do what I did, and he's 45. So, Connor, you got to move on.
Leave the man alone, you.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Trevor.
That's
sorry,
okay.
Connor.
Roisin Boyd said that Derek's watching Coronation Street rather than watching you.
Tell Roisin that I say that's typical of the jealousy that Derek has for me. I mean, he competed against me, but he couldn't get ahead of me. Derek, I wasn't going. I remember one Donegal, Trevor, and this is reference the bold Derek. Himself and my wife always get into conversation about pregnancies and giving birth and one thing and another. Right. I was thinking to myself, he should have a skirt on him instead of a pair of trousers, But anyway, there was a Donegal, and there was an award on the day for the fastest car over Knockalla. So we did Knockalla first time. And I was just sort of playing my cards close to my chest. I was thinking about winning the rally, and you don't win the rally on one stage. But anyway, at the interval, the bold Derek came to me and he said, got you there anyway, CB. We were 4 or 5 seconds quicker than you over Knockalla. We'll hopefully be getting the award. I said, Derek, it's the best of 2 runs, not the best of 1 run. And I didn't say this to him, but walking away from him, when it was 100 yards away from him, I said, you'll not get the next run as handy, I can fucking tell you, So I had a bit of a blowout in the next one, and I took enough off Derek that Derek's accumulative time for the 2 runs and mine, I was a bit ahead of him. So he didn't get the award. What do you think of that, Roisin?
Tell me about driving a 911, because they were standard cars. Driving a 911 down the back of Knockalla at 120 mile an hour, that would certainly sort the men and the boys, surely.
Well, I'm going to tell you 2 stories about Billy Coleman. Billy Coleman came up to spectate in 74, Trevor. Uh-huh. He didn't compete, he was up spectating, and he went to Knockalla. And he spoke to me after Knockalla. And he said to me, and this is, Billy, I'm sure, will hear this through the grapevine if he's not already tuned in. He said to me, what he saw in Knockalla really would force him into retirement. He said, like, I know cars are going quick and so on and so forth, but he says, to see a 911 with the rear wheel, a foot in the air in 5th gear, going down Knockalla, he said it was just breathtaking. And after the circuit, when I was speaking to him down at the DJ Vu, and I quote Billy from this, he said, in his total Cork accent, Cathal, you must have had a fucking 5-litre engine in that car. I says, no, Billy, a 2.7, but I had a 5-litre right foot.
Well, you're either very brave or very stupid, I suppose, at the end of the day.
It had to be a mixture. It had to be a mixture, Trevor. And the gentleman or the lady that was on there about the aggression, you needed a wee bit of aggression. You needed to get the teeth locked together on a stage. Like if some boy took a bit of time off you in the last stage, he just had to get a wee bit aggressive on the next one. Just as I must have been sleeping on that stage, you know. But I remember Jack Turdiff, who won the circuit.
74, yeah.
He won it in 73.
73. We fell short, actually. Yeah.
Exactly, Phil Short. An absolute, two absolute gentlemen, you know. And Jack Turdiff and the crew in Yorkshire invited myself and Pat McCourt last year over to the Mintex Rally to drive in the Mintex Rally, supplied us with cars and everything else. And we drove in the Mintex Rally. But we did the special stages, but there was no clocks on them, except the clock you had yourself, you know. And we had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you to the organisers of the Mintex Rally in Yorkshire. Pat McCourt and myself had a great time. Hotel catered for, collected in a limo at the airport. And this is only last year, 2019. You know, they looked after us so well. And of course, I got up on the stage at the end and I told them a few stories and whatnot, and we're doing very well. And they said that they would ask nothing better than to have us back again the next year, but then it was cancelled then. But Jack Turdiff and Phil Short, I'm sure you know Phil, because Phil would be one of the major organisers and whatnot.
And also a big deja vu man, he goes to them all.
Oh, yes, and a lovely guy, and his wife's a lovely lady, you know, lovely people. But Jack Turdiff's multi-millionaire, but a lovely guy. In fact, I do some business with JCT 600, which is the company that he originally brought about. But they're Ferrari dealers, they're Porsche dealers.
Big group. Yeah.
Oh, massive group, JCT 600. They fell out of BMW, Trevor, actually. You know, BMW were making demands on them. They're Mercedes, they're Ferrari, they're everything.
Yeah.
And Jack did the circuit in 73 and he won it. And him and Phil Short were doing it in 74.
Yes.
The year that we won it. And we did a stage somewhere about Clonmel, Tipperary, somewhere down mid-afternoon on Saturday. Maybe 3 or 4 o'clock. Still a fair bit from Killarney, but there was a hold up at the next stage, and this is going to sound sort of boastful, but it's not meant to be that way. This is an absolute fact. I don't need to boast anyway, Trevor. So my record speaks for itself, doesn't it? You know, waste of time me boasting. Boys used to say, "Can't beat CB in Donegal." But then, sure, CB won in Cork and won in Kerry and won in the Manx and whatnot. And sure, it wasn't rare there, you know. But anyway, to get to the other point, there was a delay at a stage while the drivers were out and the co-drivers were out. And in his clearest Yorkshire accent, Jack said to me, "Call." He didn't call me Cathal or Cackle or Cathal or nothing else. Call, what do you do there? I said, "Austin, what did we do in the last stage?" So Austin, he goes to get our time in the last stage. And I said, "What did you do, Jack?" He says, I think he says we did 1350. Oh, so Austin, he comes down to the car. I didn't speak. Austin came down to the car. "What did you do, Phil or Jack?" 1350. "What did you do?" We did 1322. And Jack Turdiff looked at me, and all he said, Trevor, to this day was, "Fucking hell, call." That's all he said. Fucking hell, call. And a Yorkshire accent, you know.
Yeah.
20 to 28 seconds or something of him on the stage. But I mean, that 74 circuit, from the boys who were there and for those who were associated with it, Plum used to talk about the two rallies, the Curley Coleman rally and the rest. And that's what it was. Billy and I arrived in Killarney with a handful of seconds separating us. In fact, we were leading them because we were first out on the road on Sunday morning. And that's the way that the UAC used to do it. Whoever was leading the rally arriving in Killarney was first on the road on Sunday morning. And we were first on the road, I think 16 seconds after Friday night and Saturday.
Yep.
2 days and a night's rally and we're 16 seconds ahead of Billy.
But then
And Billy's coming into his own area now. And in Mill Street, I think, Trevor, he took 15 seconds or something off us in Mill Street, which is his own home stage. You can expect that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But Sleigh Head was a stage that year in the Sunday run, wasn't it?
Sleigh Head, you know, Trevor, yeah, even though it's, 46 years ago or 47 years ago, I have to get back to Sleigh Head if I'm alive and well. And I'd have been back last year, I'd have been back in 2020, and I would have been back in 2021 if I didn't make it. But it's going to be 2022, I doubt. Now, I phoned Peter in the UAC. Peter, help me out, Trevor. Peter, who looks after all of the UAC business.
Go on. We'll keep going. So, but the road books, I suppose, yeah.
Yes. And I asked him if he could possibly locate for me the stage diagram for Sleigh Head. Because in Sleigh Head, and I've told the story umpteen times, Billy and I were, you know, he'd take a second off me. And what we did, Sleigh Head was about the 10th stage on Sunday.
Was it
about 12.
With Peter Allen?
Peter Allen, good lad, Trevor.
Racking my brains.
I wrote to Peter Allen, then I got his phone number and I phoned him. And I told him what the story was.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to Sleigh Head. I wanted to see how I got round the horseshoe bend, and Billy didn't. And what we were doing in those days, Trevor, was we would, my lovely daughter Helen has just popped in here to say hello, and she's waving at me not to mention her name. Hi, Helen. Billy, Ronnie McCartney was running third in the road. And what we would do, Helen's making some adjustments here. Oh, that's better, Helen. That's a lot better. Thanks, Pat. Made some adjustments. You're much bigger and I'm much bigger.
Oh, there we go.
I was always big anyway, Trevor. Anyway, we'd come to the stages. And what I did was I had a Speedmaster watch. And when I crossed the finishing line, I would start my sweep second hand. And I would wait for Billy, conveniently, to come over the finishing line. And the minute that he hit the finishing line, as far as the eye could see, I would stop the watch.
Yep.
And if Billy was 32 seconds behind me, then I took 2 of him. If he was there in 28 seconds, he took 2 of me. And that's the way we're doing it. So we came to Sleigh Head, and it was just touch and go. We were still leading, but I mean, you know, any slight mistake at all, like, and you were second. Came to Sleigh Head, beautiful morning, absolutely beautiful morning. Traction, adhesion, everything was perfect in the Porsche. Came down this long straight, no notes, down this long straight on the Dingle Peninsula, and came into a right-hand bend. I call it a horseshoe bend because it wasn't a hairpin. It was much slacker and much faster than a hairpin, but it was horseshoe type. It came back. The road you were going around was coming back parallel with the road that you went down.
Got you.
But in the center, in the apex of the bend, dead in the center of the bend, was an entrance into a farm. And absolutely opposite that was an entrance into a field. So the farmer doing any business, he came out of one gate, straight across the road and into the field.
Yep.
The farmer, whether he knew it or not, decided that the day before we got there, the Saturday, that he would spread some manure. And when I came into the bend, I had my speed broke for the bend. I was reading the road, which was all you could do. I was reading the road, and I came into the bend, and all of a sudden, away she went. And I had the opposite lock on. I remember that distinctly, but it was no good. I was looking up at the sky for some sort of direction, Trevor.
Divine intervention.
Well, intervention or direction, you know, go the other way or pull the handbrake or do something. But I froze. I want no credit for my escape on Sleigh Head. I froze. I couldn't do anything. Had the opposite lock on, my feet off the throttle, and I was sideways. and I saw a stone wall on the left-hand side, and I just locked my teeth, screamed, and waited for the collision.
Bang.
But it didn't
Horrible.
happen. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. Got round the bend and went to the next bend or so, and I wasn't a happy bunny at all. And Austin Frazer, hello Austin, hello Dory, Austin Frazer said to me, calm yourself down. Calm down, calm down. Take it easy, calm down. I just lost it at this stage. I was so near into that wall. That was the end of my rally. So got to the end of the stage eventually. Didn't settle at all on the stage, Trevor. Drove it like an old woman, just stupid. And got to the end of the stage. And 30 seconds passed, no Billy. A minute passed, no Billy. Minute and a half passed, no Billy. 2 minutes passed, RJ. God rest him. I hope he's happy up there. Ronnie arrives, gets his time, comes up to us. Yous are okay. Yous have it now. Billy's off. I says, where? He says, at a bend, a right-hand bend. I says, I know it. I know it. I made it, and Billy didn't. And in those days, Trevor, they moved the battery from the front engine compartment of the works escort. This was a works car Billy was in.
Yeah.
To the rear. And they put it in the rear left-hand side quarter panel.
In the quarter panel, yeah.
Yeah. Billy came round, tore the quarter panel out of the car, dislocated the battery, couldn't get the car started. Then I got the car started, they still finished the rally 4th overall.
Yeah.
You know, having lost a considerable amount of time. But at that stage, we had jumped into a 4-minute lead with Billy off our back. RJ was about 4 minutes behind us. We eventually finished up winning the circuit by 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we decided in some places that I got a fright actually on either Havana or the Sally Gap. Those were 2 stages in the circuit, Trevor, that I detested. The reason I detested them was they were over the top of mountains.
Is this a headlight story?
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I start Havana or the Sally Gap. I'm not too sure which. But the reason I hated them, Trevor, were very hard to read because there was no ditches. It was a very, very low bank. And you couldn't read the degree of the bend that you were coming to. You know, they were just difficult stages. All right in daylight, you know, but not too pleasant at night. So I started either Havana or the Sally Gap. And after they were 23 miles long now. Each of them were 23 miles long.
Yeah.
And after about 6 or 7 miles, the inside of my car suddenly lit up. And I thought to myself, my good God, you know, I must be creeping. You know, Jesus, somebody's catching me. So I start saying, with maybe 15 miles to go, and I came to the end of the stage, Trevor. And at that stage, I'm still 5 minutes ahead. There's no need for me to be getting smart or getting clever or trying to show off. What we wanted in Austin, I remember you saying to me, a nice steady drive now, a nice steady drive. And I got to the end of the stage, Trevor, and I wanted to have what would be commonly known as a wee-wee. And I got out of the car to have a wee-wee. We had checked in, and I pulled up the car because I wanted to get to the toilet. And I parked at the side of the grass, got out, and I noticed, God, that grass is all lit up. Where the hell is that light coming from? And this is actual fact, Trevor. And I couldn't figure it out. And I moved forward, and I looked in to the brake disc of the car. And where you would normally see brake discs red, these discs were white. I never got brake fit. They were white, and they were lighting up the grass where I was having a pee. And I thought to myself, Jesus, they wouldn't have lasted much longer, would they? They were actually white now, lighting up the grass in the dark, And that was uncalled for, because what happened there, Trevor, was, and I give him a touch about it too, we normally worked in 1 minute intervals in the circuit, right? And up until then, it was a 1 minute interval. But you had a choice. If you had a quick man in front of you, you could request to go after 30 seconds. And Billy decided to go after 30 seconds. He was still running second overall in the rally, or he was still running on the road second.
Yeah.
And he started 30 seconds behind me. And somewhere along that stage, a Havana or the Sally Gap, that if you're on one side of it, you can, you're turning, you can light up the car on the far side, and you're maybe 5 or 6 miles away from the car on the far side.
Yeah, of course.
The valley's there, So I got a fright there, so we just steadied up from there to the finish, Trevor, If there's anybody out there, Trevor, wants to ask a question, we're here. And as I said before, it doesn't matter what it is, I'll find an answer for it.
I don't think I'll be able to fit it in somehow, Cathal, but we'll give it a go.
Right.
There's a Donegal man here, Raleigh Gallagher. I assume he is, maybe he's not. CB was a real hero when I was starting. Love the time card story. Brilliant. Fergus McAnally.
Oh, Jesus, brilliant. We should have been in jail in Isle of Man because...
Yeah. What else have we got? John Leahy's here. Spoke to Dad last evening. Hope he's watching. Sedan Keller, hopefully. Adrian Doherty worked for Start Graham BMW and all spoke well of Mr. Curley. David Farris, this will be some crack watching from Trillick.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Sean
Thanks,
Tracy.
everybody.
Would you know Sean Tracy?
Oh, Sean, I'd love to borrow your BMW sometime, but we'd have to arrange a pretty tight, comprehensive insurance policy on it, because as our interviewer said here, Cathal, you didn't realise sometimes that you could maybe go slow. You were always pushing it, and I suppose that's right, Trevor. That's where the wee bit of aggression came in. There was always a push on.
Doesn't make you a bad person, I tell you that. John McElhinney, good to see you on here. Looking great, Cathal. Looking forward to the great stories. Graham McCorkle said the fastest man around campsite. There we go. Chris
Graham McCorkle tells lies too. I'm going to report him to his father. I'll get manners put on Master Graham whenever I speak to Ken, the daddy.
Seamus Haggerty is again having a go about 2004. I think there we'll just move on past that one. That was the story.
What's he talking about 2004? He's just jealous, Seamus Haggerty. That's what's wrong with him. Jealousy. He has a lovely wife, but Trevor, beautiful wife.
You calm yourself down there now. Wasn't Conor Curley? Okay. There's a bit of a Curly battle on here. Well said, Seamus Haggerty. So these guys are watching these comments. You see, you can't see them until I bring them up here. Yeah. Kevin O'Driscoll says, a legend of a driver, when we get to see him in action 2004 for the first time, and he competed along with Ronan and Conor. And thanks to Kevin for his photographs again this week.
Kevin, Master O'Driscoll, thank you very much for your compliments. But 2004, you should have been about in 74. You were 30 years late, but it's a great name in Cork, the O'Driscolls. They're absolutely fabulous people. From the rally people to the coursing people, the O'Driscolls, I'd be fairly familiar with a good few of them. And Jimmy Barry Murphy would be another very good friend of mine in Cork. And Jimmy Barry is a legend in his own way. He played for Cork in the All-Ireland hurling final, and he played for Cork in the All-Ireland football final. Jimmy Barry Murphy, fabulous guy.
Michael Lyons on, how's Trevor and Cathal book Killarney for 2022? Please God, it'll happen. Always enjoy the show. Top job. Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Kevin. That poor Porsche. Drew Hull says, evening, Trevor and Cathal. This will be a great night. Hopefully it'll be over before we go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Sean Tracy saying he's trying to catch you in 2002. There we go. Graham McCorkle always tells the truth.
He's a liar.
Mike Moriarty from Farran 4 saying hello from County Kerry.
Farran 4, that's well down, boy. Farran 4. Lovely people in Farran 4. That's the airport, the Kerry airport.
It is, yeah.
Farran 4. And how I love my wife just adores Killarney, and I have promised to take her back. CB entertaining off the stage as well as on the hill. Well, that's because of the lies that I've prepared for the programme.
Indeed. Great night sport. Evening the Welsh supporters. Lots of Welsh people in tonight. It's great. Not so many last week because of the rugby. Oh, should we mention? Well, the one in the end. Which one of the Galway rallies did you win in the twin cam, Cathal? Which one off?
I'm not sure. You'd have to look at my record to find out our first rally win in Galway.
The first one was 71.
71. We actually won it 3 times. The wheel fell off in the last one.
Yeah, you told us that now.
But those Welsh people, may I convey my very best regards to the people in Wales who are actually tuning in. It's a wonderful part of the world. And please don't mention what happened in the hotel regarding the door and the door frame, because that man could maybe sue me.
Well, don't you keep bringing it up then? Did you do Epping? Did you do the military ranges in the
I did Epping, yes.
What do you think of that?
And I hated it because all of my fellow competitors, all of the English drivers and the Welsh drivers and probably the Scottish drivers, they all knew it off by heart. Oh, you can do 100 mile there in a certain bit, and you can do this and do that. There was fog on it, and I don't think I crossed 25 miles an hour on it.
Mad.
You know?
It wouldn't be the same if you were going over Glen in the fog. Like you wouldn't be able to take time out of them, would you? No.
Well, Glen would be.
Hi, Glen, especially.
Good man yourself, Sean Cohen. Poor Cathal, he's hard on you. Thanks, Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Oh dear.
Fergal O'Rourke.
3-car challenge in Ring next year. Fergal O'Rourke reckons. There we go. This 3-car idea seems to be growing momentum.
If you get a sponsor, Mister, as far as Ring is concerned, that gentleman O'Rourke there, if he gets a sponsor, don't pass any remarks on the 80 or the coming to 81. There's a fair bit of bite there yet, I can tell you.
You just go for a drive around, won't you? You've learnt your lesson now. Trevor, can you ask him which he preferred, notes or blind? That's from Ray Cunningham. You know Ray, don't you?
Ray, an absolutely a gentleman and a hell of a driver. I mean, I can't say anything bad about these guys, you know. Ray Cunningham, fabulous driver. Ray, I think blind, because blind came closer to a mixture of courage and stupidity. Whereas the notes, everybody was on a level playing field. But on the blind, if you took a chance here and there, you could maybe work out a wee advantage of 2 or 3 seconds each stage. And if you did 10 stages and you happen to save 3 or 4 seconds here and there, you'd be 30 or 40 seconds in front, or you'd be fairly quick. But on the circuit in 74, Ray was completely blind. And I mean, we left Lauren, I think, no, we left the Manor House in Killadees in County Fermanagh, and we headed towards Sligo and Mayo. And that was an area, Ray, where I never rallied. I mean, I never did a rally in Mayo or a rally in Sligo. Well, maybe I did do a rally in Sligo, but going on down the west then, from Mayo to Clare to Galway to Limerick, that land was an absolute completely strange to me. Excuse me, but myself and Billy seemed to manage to get a 3 or 4 second lead gathered up by the time we got to Killarney. But every stage, Ray, you were just sort of on the limit. And make no mistake about it, if you want to compete with Billy Coleman, or you want to compete with Adrian Boyd, or you want to compete with Balaggy yourself, Ray, you just had to take the chances. And in a lot of occasions, and a lot of our wins, should it be the Manx or the Circuit or the International Ulster Rally or even Donegal, we had moments where maybe 60 mile an hour was the best you get round at, and maybe we were doing 65, you know, and you just sometimes had to play between the centre pedal and the right pedal, you know, and you didn't want to do anything wrong. I remember my first rally with a fella called Sean O'Hare and Enniskillen. It was a navigation rally. We came to a left-hand bend, and I thought I was going too fast to get around it, so I braked. and I went straight across the road and into the ditch. So Sean O'Hare turned round to me. That was in a Volkswagen, Trevor. Sean O'Hare turned round to me and he said, "That's the first lesson you've learned. When you come into a bend and you come into it too quick, the last thing you want is the brakes." So I said, right. And I learned something from that.
That was
But,
was that
but
the
Ray was,
1500S?
that was a 1500S, yeah.
Aye, so it'd be heavy at the back as well. You wouldn't get much brake in the front of it.
No. But Ray Cunningham, super driver,
Yes.
super driver.
I agree.
As were, a lot of guys. Is it true, Billy Coleman? What?
I knew you'd see that one.
Is it true, Billy Coleman never beat you in a rally where both of you finished? Yes, that is 100% correct. If I finished, Billy never beat me.
Ian, we don't need to give him any more material, Ian. Come on, calm yourself down here.
Ian McCarthy, that's a fact, Ian, and you can ask Billy. And I can also tell you that Billy, at the last Deja Vu, Billy says to me, "You must have had a fucking 5-litre engine in that car." I said, "No, Billy, 2.7, but a 5-litre right foot."
So, how did you not get a works brake then?
Well, Trevor, there was one works team operational within the confines of Ireland and the UK, and that was Ford. And they had Chris Slater, they had Roger Clark, they had an excellent team of proven drivers. I mean, when I started in a Mark 1 Escort, Roger Clark, even whenever we went to the 1600 twin cam, we had trouble with the gearbox, a rocket box or a bullet box. They were very weak. We would have been leading rallies and the gearbox would have packed in. But we discovered that Roger Clark didn't have a 1600cc vehicle. He had a 1650, which gave him a lot more torque, believe it or not. And he had, I don't know what sort of a gearbox it was, but it wasn't the gearboxes that we were using. Because in those days, Trevor, the works team were always at least a couple of years ahead of the privateer. In other words, like whatever developments they were doing on their cars, that would not be made public until at least a couple of years, So Roger had a big advantage. Jimmy McRae with Vauxhall, whenever he was driving for them, they would have had a big advantage because they had to develop their cars, and Vauxhall had to develop theirs to compete with Ford, and Ford vice versa. And we were driving 1600s with a weak gearbox. They were driving a 1650 with a strong gearbox. Now, I wouldn't like to take away from Roger Clark's ability or Chris Slater's ability or Jimmy McRae's ability. Fabulous drivers altogether. I never had the pleasure, except in my very early circuit days, I never had the pleasure of competing against Jimmy, but I watched Jimmy, and Jimmy was good. Anyone that wins the circuit half a dozen times, I mean, okay, luck plays a certain part in it because any part of the car could break up, but Jimmy McRae deserved every victory that he got. And Roger was a dream to watch. Himself and Hannah Mikula, and Hannah Mikula died there just a few weeks ago.
Did, yeah, sadly.
Yeah, very, very sad, but super driver. Guy.
What was your relationship like with Roger then? Tell us a bit more about Roger Clark, because he was a big hero of mine growing up. Like, I remember 72 a little bit, but definitely 76 in the Cossack Escort in those eras. So you knew him clearly before that then. So just tell us some stories about Roger.
We beat Roger in the Manx in 74. Of course, when we won it, we beat everybody. And there was quite a few works cars in it. Tony Pond was there in the works, Triumph TR8 or something, and Roger was there and whatnot. And Roger wasn't best pleased. And he made his feelings known at the prize giving.
Right, we're going to come on to that prize giving in a second, because I heard that you had a white suit on at that prize giving. Is there any truth in that rumour?
Well, I was very friendly with James Bond.
Right, go on, tell us your story.
I got a loan of James's suit, but it needed a few adjustments. The jacket had to be shortened by 12 or 14 inches, and the trousers had to be shortened by about 2 feet.
Go on, I interrupted you.
I don't actually recall my attire on the night.
You don't. Well,
But
let me just, because this was what Ivor Clark was sending a message about earlier. So he let me see if I can find it here. So he was speaking to Tommy Knox from Tyrone during an annual catch-up. That must have been yesterday. I was chatting to him. Tommy is a service crew member,
Tommy, no,
advisor,
please, hello, Tommy.
friend
That
of
is my
Robin
number
Lance.
one. That's my number one fan. Stanley Baxter was very good, but Tommy didn't see anybody beating CB. And when we used to have debates with RJ and lots of other guys, Tommy was there. And Tommy was the most outspoken critic about every driver, only me. You can all do what you want to do, but you'll never get round to beating CB, you know. And this was Tommy, loud and clear. Hello, Tommy. Great to see you're still alive. Love to run into you some of these days. It would be fabulous. But he's a very funny guy too. But listen, he told the truth. He said none of them could match CB, and I was his number one.
Fair enough. Well, it just certainly the confidence is good. I like it. I like it. So he related the story about that prize giving. So it was just the big reception at the prize giving for the Manx in '74. When you strolled in, dressed in your white suit, an image of a millionaire. He said that's what Tommy said. So beating
Thank
Roger
you, Tommy.
Clark. Listen, beating Roger Clark, Desi McCartney was second, Roger was third, Billy Coleman fourth. And he said that Tommy had a lump in his throat when he told him he's so proud and pleased to have seen that reception back then. So there you go. That's Ivor's story.
Well, Tommy was witness to the fact that we were up on the stage and we were getting our award for first overall. And I can tell you, Trevor, we had some support because all of the Northern Ireland contingency were there, whether you were McCartney or Boyd or Curley, like everybody was there because CB had won. And I'll tell you, Tommy was there. And Tommy was as loud as any dozen people that you could get together. And Clark came in. And I have no doubt that Tommy maybe had a bit of a go at Clark. Oh, here's Roger. Where did you finish, Roger? Oh, you were third. The wee Irishman beat the arse off you, Roger. And Tommy is quite capable of doing that. But when we were up getting our prize, I thank Clark of the course and the rally sponsors and so on and so forth. And Roger came out of nowhere and he grabbed the mic and he said, next year's rally, they're going to extend the raggy time for an extra 5 days for Cathal Curley's benefit. Roger wasn't best pleased now. And Tommy remembers that, and any time that I would be speaking to Tommy. But Tommy kept them going. Tommy might not have believed all he was saying, but when he got a clutter of rally boys together, Tommy all he hit them with, what are you talking about? There's a man there. You should watch him driving the car to see how you drive the car, you know. Then, of course, whenever I was successful in the Porsche, everybody thought, oh, all you need now is a Porsche. If you have a Porsche now, you'll win rallies. Unfortunately, it just didn't happen for a lot of people with Porsches, you know. But the difference, I can tell the rally fraternity, the difference between driving a Porsche and driving an Escort was the Porsche was fabulous. The Porsche was the best balanced car that you could think about. When you break the Porsche, Trevor, and the rally fraternity who are listening, the Porsche sat down on all four wheels. When you braked an Escort hard at the end of a straight, she jacked up her back and dipped the front. I could brake much later than an Escort, but when you got sideways in the Porsche, there was a braking point in the Porsche.
There was a point in the wet road.
And you didn't have a lot of notice. Now, in an Escort, you could come up showing a side light and a tail light for 100 yards. You could be that sideways in an Escort. Porsche was a different animal. If she got out so far, if she got that braking point, then it was just like a shot out of a gun. She was just round on you, you know. So you had to know in your mind, you know, especially on the fast stuff, you had to know in your mind when you were reaching a braking point. And you know, I drove the Porsche the same way as I drove the Escorts. and the BMWs and whatnot, you know, I was always a wee bit sideways. But you just needed to know your limit in the Porsche. She was a shade more precise to drive than an Escort. An Escort would have been a more forgiving car, as would the Chevettes or the other vehicles, Trevor. But the Porsche, if you pushed her too far, she would catch you out very quick.
Yeah. Just once the weight transfer went so far,
Yes,
it's a bang.
yes,
That's it.
exactly, Trevor.
Teach you manners.
Yes, yes. Thank heavens, I only went off once in the Porsche, Trevor, and it was in the Galway Rally when I was driving AUI 1500, and the problem with us, Trevor, in the Porsche, and we screamed about it, the Goodyear to Dunlop to Pirelli, they never had a 15-inch tire.
Yeah.
All their tires made for competition, for the Roots group, for Fords, for everybody, was 13-inch rims and 13-inch tires. We were in 15s. But we managed to scrape a couple of wet fronts. When I say wet fronts, what we used to do was we would put 2 wets on the front and we'd keep 2 dries on the back, even in the wet. Because if you had the brake, if you had the back of the car braking on you, you could control that. It's when the front understeered that you were with the man above. I mean, you turned the wheel, the car just understeered, you were gone. There wasn't a thing you could do. So we used to run the wets in the front, or that was our plan, and we used to run the dries in the rear.
Yeah.
And what we did was we used the wide tires, the 8-inch or 8.5-inch rims on the wets on the front, and we used the 7.5-inch dries on the back, so we had a wee bit more adhesion. But they were a dangerous car in the wet, Trevor, from the point of view that if you break them in the lightness about the front in the wet, they didn't have the same braking or the same amount of stability as they had in the dry. When you brake in the dry, that car just sat down on all four, and you could brake really late. I remember people co-driving with me who weren't used to me, including Terry Harriman, giving off a couple of occasions. He thought that I wasn't going to get stopped for the junction,
Like a Drexel Gillespie sat with you, didn't he?
He did indeed, yes. Drexel Gillespie and me were, on Saturday afternoon, we were 3 minutes ahead in the Donegal Rally. We were in the 3-litre car for the first time, and we had the handling sorted out, we had everything sorted out, and we came to Guibara Bridge, and there was a left-hand junction at it, and there was a stone wall which came down to the very tarmac. And I went round just an inch too tight to the rear, and I punctured the rear left. And I said to Drexel, how far have we to go? He said, we have about 7 miles. I said, do you think we'll be making it to the flat? I think so. I think so. It's fairly straight. So we went on, but I was conscious at that stage that I was 3 minutes ahead. I should have stopped, Trevor, and changed the wheel. I didn't. And I was conscious that someone might be coming behind me, and I wanted to leave them room to get past. That's the last thing I'd want to be involved in, is blocking someone on the stage, because I would know how you would feel. So I drove on, the road was fairly narrow, and I stayed to the left-hand side. And was trying to drive and control the car. My time looking up in the mirror was kind of limited. So I decided to stay in on the grass verge for most of the journey. And there was water gullies, just open-ended water gullies to take the water off the road and into the ditch. Not a vellum or a grating now, just a gully.
No, I hear what you're saying, yeah.
And I picked the wrong side of the road to stay on. That's the side that had the flat wheel. And every gully that we went over, boom, boom, the back end of the car, you see. Got to the end of the stage, didn't lose too much, lost about a minute or maybe a minute and a half. I think 2 cars passed us or something like that. Still in the lead, still quite happy. And took the car over to the one side, jacked her up, and went to change the wheel. And got the spare out, got the spare on, and let the car down. And I said, hold on, there's something wrong here. What's wrong? that wheel's completely torn in.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it couldn't be. It is. Someone hasn't taken a nut off. You know, so we took the wheel off again, and all the nuts were off. But the tubular pewter iron that holds the disc and the hub on a Porsche, it's pewter. It's not aluminium. It's not iron.
Uh-huh.
It's pewter. Cracked. And we never ever in our lives carried a spare one of those. We didn't have one, but it was too late anyway. So I phoned for the service crew. Boys came along and said, that's it. You can't weld it. You can't patch it. You can't do anything with it. Put her on the trailer. And that was our fourth Donegal in a row that we lost out. But,
Talk to me
sorry,
about
go
the
ahead.
start of getting a Porsche, Cathal. When the first Porsche then, there's a story about when you bought that, is there? Or is this car here, the purple? Was that the purple car? Yeah, the original.
I bought that from my honourable friend, the Reverend Ronnie J. McCartney, RJ. RJ had done a couple of rallies in the car, Trevor. And this is how you can be deceived now.
So that car would originally came from AFN then in London, yeah?
Yes.
Right.
And RJ wanted to sell it.
Uh-huh.
GIA 444.
Yeah, that car there.
And I said, like, it looked like a right decent car. I'll maybe have a go with it. So I had a go with RJ, and I gave him a certain amount of money, and I traded him in 3 or 4 or 5 cars.
And the rest.
And I got the car.
Uh-huh.
So we decided, I bought the car in about May. And Donegal was the next month in June. I had about 6 weeks with the car.
Uh-huh.
RJ delivered the car to Donald McInerney and Patsy Donaghy. Excuse me. And I never sat in the car. I never test drove it. I never went out for a speed test or to test my ability or nothing. And the first time that I put my rear end in the car, and this is what I feel quite proud about, Trevor, really, you know. The boys have been doing some winding up now. Like, I can hear them in the background. You hear the bollocks there talking and waffling and lying. I'm not lying. I don't tell lies. So anyway, Trevor, went down to the Ballyrain Hotel.
Yep.
The boys had the car in the car park in Park Fernie. And the first time that I got into the car was to go on to the ramp in the car to start the rally. And we went out to the first stage, which was out the Kilmacrennan Road and into the left.
Uh-huh.
And I did the stage. And I thought to myself, fair play to you, RJ. You have sold me some pop. This car is absolutely useless. Got to the end of the stage. My oil pressure was at 0. And my heart wasn't too far behind it. You know, and I thought to myself, what a mess. What a bloody car. And I remember one left-hander where she cocked herself up on 2 wheels. And I thought to myself, geez, an Escort wouldn't do that. An Escort would go around that bend. Anyway, I got to the end of the stage. And as I drove the road section to the next stage, the first thing I noticed, because I would have a certain amount of mechanical ability, or at least interest, I saw my oil pressure gauge starting to climb up again. At the end of the stage, when I was sitting ticking over, the oil pressure gauge was at 0.
Uh-huh.
And I thought to myself, engine's definitely scooped. You know, or thinking to me, very good, Ronnie, you have sold me some pop here. So I got to the next stage, and I did the next stage, and I didn't feel happy in the car at all. I thought the handling was off. I thought my driving was off. I thought everything was off. And I got to the start of the third stage. And who was there? Only my co-driver of many years, Austin.
Yeah, because Terry Harriman was sitting with you in the rally, wasn't he? He was. I think Terry was with you because Austin was involved in the organisation of the rally, so he couldn't do it. And Terry co-drove you in that car, I think.
In the blue car, did he? Because he co-drove me in AUA 1500.
Yeah, that was later on as well. Yeah, he did that. That was in 74. where you won it, but 73 is with you as well, yeah.
Was I right? Okay. So we got to the end of the second stage, and then there was a wee bit of a service stop or something like that. And Austin was there, and he says, "Well done." And I thought to myself, is he speaking to me, or is there somebody behind me? And I realised he was speaking to me. And I said, "How do you mean, well done?" Because we didn't. Harryman wasn't the sort of a fellow who ran around cars looking for times. Peter Scott was very good at that. PR Scott would be at every car and going, "What'd you do there? What'd you do there?" He had everybody's time, you know. But Terry didn't get involved in that. So Austin says to me, "You're leading." I says, "What? You're leading?" Well, I says, "The rest of them must be stopped." Because I said, I didn't like the car. I didn't like the way she performed. I didn't like the way she handled. And I wasn't getting on at all with the car. You know? So anyway, we're leading it. So we sort of settles down and starts to think, maybe this car is not as bad as what I thought she was, because there's a few heavy boys in the rally, you know, and I mean, if we're leading, we have to be doing something right, or they were doing something wrong, you know. So we persevered, and we got into we got the Freddie run over us, and we were in front. And at this stage, I reckoned that whatever was left in the Porsche, I hadn't used it all yet, because I wasn't happy, Trevor. I just wasn't happy with the feel of the car. And if you're not happy with the feel of the car, you're certainly not driving at 10 times, you know. So I went out on Saturday and had a mowing. We held our lead, maybe increased it, and did the same thing on Sunday. And after that, we decided that car was a 2.7.
It was.
But it wasn't a 2.7 RS, but it was a 2.7. Now, the difference in the two cars were electric sunroof, electric windows, a steel bonnet, and so on and so forth. Whereas my white car was an RS, and she had aluminium bonnet, no sunroof, no electric windows, and she would have maybe been a couple of hundredweight lighter, you know. So that was the story on GAA 444. Short time after that.
But you only used it for 3 rallies, and you were first, second, and second. So first in Donegal, second in the Texaco rally, and second in the Manx again. Well, second in the Manx. So it done you.
We must have been second in the Manx about 4 times or 5 times, but every time we were second, it was a works car that beat us. You know, it wasn't any of our Irish friends or it was some of the works cars, Roger or Davenport or Slaters or Colin Malkin or some of them, you know.
How did you enjoy the Manx?
How did I enjoy the Manx? It was great. It's a very, 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 very fast rally.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the only thing that would compare with it at times would be Knockalla, the stage in Donegal. You know, the Knockalla stage where you were flat out in 5th gear in a 911, and it would be pulling 120 or 130 miles an hour. And that's what Billy Coleman said to me when he was spectating in 74.
Yeah, you were saying earlier, But
he said he wouldn't consider going back to rallying, but he did. But he said he wouldn't consider going back after watching us and the Porsche come down. I didn't pass any remarks on it. Like, you know, it was a fairly straight road, and the bend wasn't too severe, but it was severe enough at 120 or thereabouts, as the radar used to show. It was severe enough to cock the back wheel up in the air for a couple of 100 yards.
Well, here, were you lucky in the Manx, like? The reason I ask is John Wilson has typed you a little note here.
Hello, John.
He remembers that the prize money was £1,000, but after the prize given, you went into the casino and you won another 1,000. Is there any truth in that rumour?
John, I think maybe the winners were maybe a wee bit boasted. Maybe we won 100 in the casino rather than 1,000. But as opposed to maybe to mark the day, to make sure people didn't forget it, maybe we did mention £1,000 in the casino. But I won in the casino anyway. You know, you asked me, was the Manx a lucky rally to me? Well, we were second 4 times, and we always experienced a bit of a mishap in it And the last time that Davenport threatened me and threatened Austin, and Austin Frazer would verify this, that if we won the rally, he was going to object because he saw Sydney Meegan and Minnie Tonas in along the prom, That's how much it meant to Davenport to win the rally. We were only over as, has-beens or would-beens or whatever you would call them.
A hard old question for you here now.
Good. Oh. The way I would answer that question. There's Kate.
It's Kate.
That's my grandchild, Kate. We'll see now, Kate, and many other. Well,
I just want to see you squirm here. See if you can get out of this one.
I would have a variation on that one, Kate.
Well, you can sit on the fence. You can see. Do your politician bit.
No. I'm quite happy to answer it. When I'm in Limavady, Kate is the loveliest lassie you could meet. She's a model, in fact. She's actually modelling in Limavady. I was saying she takes her good looks from her papa. And when I'm in Derry, then I have Sophie and Emma, grandchildren, all girls. But let me tell you a funny story.
Well, before you do that, here's an interesting thing for you to think about. Katie's great grandkids will be able to watch this in a few years' time and know all about how modest and shy their great grandfather was. Go on, tell me your story.
Well, that would be pretty much truthful, Kate. That would be about as close to the truth as you can get. My idea about life was modesty, manners, understanding, patience, and whatnot. Now, I wouldn't give you that on paper, Trevor, but I would give it to you verbally. Right. But grandchildren, I have the loveliest grandchildren. I have Blaine, who's a lovely young fella. He's got a motor business. He came up to me and he worked with us for a year or two, decided to get into the motors himself, and we help him in any way we can. Fintan is my wife's favourite because he's a great electrician, and every time that Margaret has a bulb out or a light out or something like that, Fintan is up. Ronan is their father. My son is a gem. And, one gem always gets another gem. He has got Trina. And Trina is an absolute lady from top to bottom. I don't want to tell too many people, Trevor. And so I'll go into a whispering mood. Take a look at my hair. Now, my hair hasn't remained that length for the last 3 or 4 months. So there's a certain person who gives me a wee clip now and again.
It's all right.
That's all hush hush. So I don't want to say anything, but I just want to say thank you to the person who gives me the wee clip.
That's fair enough. We clip around the ear, maybe the odd times needed as well.
Yeah, well, I got plenty of those too.
Edward Glacken is one of the Castlederg Mafia. No relation, I'm sure, to Eamon Glacken, but he's...
You'll not be any the worst of that anyway, Edward.
Rick, fantastic to hear the crack. Crying laughter at the stories. Thanks, and stay safe. Okay. Sean Moriarty says the 74 sleigh head, he's done a load of research on it, drove past the scene of Coleman's accident after finding the 74 road book. So Sean Moriarty knows exactly where it is. So there's
Sean, there's a fella down there who's just after writing a book in Killarney. His name is Mihal. Can you help me, Sean? Mihal.
Somebody will type it in a minute.
From Killarney. It's just on occasions like this, names just slip my mind.
It'll be there in a minute. Go on, tell your story.
Mihal wrote a book, and he phoned everybody involved in the book, including Phil Coulter and myself and whatnot. And he did an article and several pages on myself. And all of the boys, he phoned them all personally, Mihal. He did a wonderful job. Mihal, are you Mihal
O'Mahony?
O'Mahony. That's it. Mihal O'Mahony. That last fella that was there, I would give him my little finger. No, I'd give him the nail of my little finger for that road book, because I've got to get the sleigh head before I die. I've got to see that stage where I was, and I put my hands up. Mike O'Mahony, thank you very much. Thank you. I have his book and have 6 more copies ordered with him for guests of mine, and I suppose I'll have to give one of them to Trevor Agnew, whose patience are frequently tested, and who manages to keep smiling all the time. I don't know how he does.
There's about 15 sheep. I'd be very good at rounding up sheep, I think, after this. So
yes,
we'll get them in the pen.
Good.
Right?
Good. But it's lovely to see all these guys coming in.
Oh, is it ever?
I'll answer anything regarding age or sex, drink, drugs, rock and roll, you name it. You know,
there's 200 people watching you live here now, so we're all good. Pat Kirks.
Hello, everybody.
Pat
Kirk, he was with me today and he was with me yesterday, and we're trying to do a deal, but Pat doesn't want me to say to anybody. You know, but Kirk is some character. He is a good driver, excellent pilot, you know, but some character. He tells stories.
The odd story as well.
Oh, you should have him on, Trevor. He is fantastic with stories, and he remembers them all, and I don't.
Jared Keown's from Cork. Sean Moriarty, the road book belonged to Jared Buckley. You had a few battles with Jared Buckley along the way, yeah?
Just the one in Cork, if I recall, because Jared came on the scene. He wasn't on the scene whenever I was Porsche mounted. It was after that. But Cork people are great, and I do a very, very good Cork accent. How are you, bye? How are you, Kevin? Are you well? You know,
it's better than the Yorkshire one. I'll give you that.
Or the Yorkshire one with Jack Turdiff. Fucking hell, cop. You know, that's all he said about my time on the stage. And Phil Short looked at me, you know. Some great days, Trevor.
Gary Jennings got a job for you.
One of my favourite drivers of all time. The hardest trier. Superb in business. How he manages it, I don't know. But a beyond superb driver. And probably one of the unluckiest drivers to be so good, you know, has been so near it on so many occasions in the big ones, and has had a mishap or a breakdown or something. But Gary, great to hear from you. TV for 4th Minister. Not if you were to give me the lotto, would I consider the 4th Minister or the 2nd Minister either, or the 3rd one as far as that goes, Gary, you know?
That's high praise.
Thanks,
that's high praise for Gary Jennings. Imagine how quick he'd be if he had a decent co-driver as well, eh?
No, you couldn't say much about Rory Kelly. John Dolan, I would say there are a few rallies left in Cal yet. Well, John, you see, the mind is a funny thing. I honestly think in my mind, if I could just control that wee bit of extra push that I always had, if I could control it, I would feel in me mind that yes, I want somebody sometime to organise a rally for the over 70s or the over 75s, which would bring them closer to me. And I'll tell you, you could have a few bob on me, John, because I would either win it would be shite, or both with me. Always was. Thanks, John.
John reminded me about the Donegal Rally song that he put together. He changed the words on it. Remember that? There's Gary Jennings is on the fiddle as well. I think James Cullen on the guitar. There's a right load of stuff going on with that one.
Oh, fabulous.
Did a pile of research in this. Sean Moore, we've done that one. What was your favourite Porsche to rally? Was the 3-litre harder to handle than the earlier ones you would have competed on from Fergus McAnally?
When I was driving the blue car, I got to realise, Fergus, that it was a supercar. When I drove the white car, AUI 1500 to 2.7, I thought to myself, if I had had this car a year ago or 2 years ago, I'd have cleaned up on it. It felt so good. And when I moved from that to the 3-litre, it was unbelievable. It was the best. In Donegal, Fergus, on Saturday, after 8 stages on Friday and 3 stages on Sunday, after 8 stages on Friday and 3 or 4 on Saturday, we were over 3 minutes ahead in Donegal. Now, okay, I accept. and I can tell you, I would be difficult to beat in Donegal, whether it was Roger Clark or anyone else, because it would be half notes and half knowledge. And that would put me at a serious advantage. And I'm being very, very honest about it. I never had to push to the limit in Donegal to win it easily. But the 3-litre car, Fergus, was an absolute unbelievable beast. It was fabulous. In fact, I remember Ari Vatanen saying to me in the Manx, we were several stages in the Manx, and in areas on them, Fergus, there was stone walls or ditches made out of stone, and they were quite narrow. And I remember Artie Vatanen coming back to me. I was running behind him, and he said to me, how do you get that car through those narrow roads without marking it? Now, I said, we're just maybe lucky. But even Ari Vatanen was amazed that 3-litre Porsche got through some of the narrow sections in the Manx, because some of them were really, really narrow, and they were solid stones. It wasn't a ditch or a bank, a clay bank. It was actually stones from the tarmac up,
That was 76 when Ari would have been there, I think, with Peter Bryant. Yeah.
Yes.
What a gentleman he is, eh?
I mean, Ari's into the political game big time, and has been for quite some time, but a lovely guy, an absolute gem, super driver too, But listen, Trevor, I must say something about the fellas who didn't make it driving, and I think it's very important, and that's to the ordinary, everyday guys out there who are competing against the best. Now, today in rallying, and I don't mean this to be hurtful in anyone, because I want to keep it light, I want to keep it simple. But today, if you take Donegal, if you take the circuit, if you take the Manx, if you take Cork, there's an entry of 120. There's not a chance that anyone seated outside the top 8 or 10 is going to win the rally. Mm-hmm. If the top 8 or 10 succeed in staying on the road, And I would like to congratulate the fellas who, on a very, very limited budget, can result in a very good placing in some of these rallies. And if those lads had the finance and the vehicles that are up there in the top 10 or 12, they'll be given people who think they're untouchable a lot to do. And without those guys, you can't hold a rally for 10 people. I mean, the entry fee and the insurance and the accommodation and the sponsorship is inexplicably linked to entries of 100 or 120 or 150. Donegal's oversubscribed. They have about 180 entries between the international event and the classic event and whatnot, And I have an awful lot of time for the guys who are there struggling financially and struggling with the vehicle. That's absolutely no chance of figuring in the rally. But they're out there and they're doing it. And they're doing it with great heart and with great spirit, And they're probably maybe putting a year's work into it, some of them, to compete. I mean, you take the entry fee today. I think the entry fee in Donegal is about 1,200 or 1,400 euros.
Yeah.
If you think anything about your car, it's another 10 or 12 or 1,400 euros to insure it comprehensively. So before you buy a tyre, before you buy a gallon of juice, there's £3,000 there, It's got very expensive. In my day, Trevor, I bought the Porsche. The entry fee never cost us a thought. Insurance, never even thought about it. I mean, we had the trader's insurance to cover the car on the road.
Yeah.
Right? But no insurance or liabilities if we wrecked it in the rally.
Yeah.
Today it's got very expensive.
So just give us an idea of that then. To buy a Porsche to go rallying wasn't cheap either. Like, you're talking about the price of a 3-bedroom house.
Right. Well, Trevor, to buy the Porsche and to run it, first of all, to buy it, you could avail of a loan agreement with a finance company,
Yeah.
which I did. I make no secret about it. I couldn't go out and buy a Porsche and write me check for it at the time. I could write the check for it, but I would be humbling the business. So therefore, it had to be subject to a finance agreement.
Yeah.
So the profits out of the business went to pay the higher purchase installments.
Yeah.
The running of the car, Trevor, was zero.
Uh-huh.
Now that might sound a lot of nonsense to a lot of people. We never had to look at the engine. We never had to look at the gearbox. We never had to replace the clutch. We did have to replace brake pads. We never had to replace a disc, ever. And that's after winning international rally after international rally.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, all we did in the circuit with our car was, I think, 2 sets of tyres, I think, and a complete set of front brake pads. That was our expense in the maintenance of the car for the circuit. And after the circuit, there's nothing really you could do. But I'll tell you a story, and this will go down well with some people, and it'll belittle to some extent what I'm trying to say, because I have an awful lot of time for the guys who are struggling they love the rally. They're linked to the rally.
Yeah.
And they're putting every penny that they can get their hands on into it. When we succeeded in winning the Cork International and the Galway and Donegal and the Manx and the Circuit and the Ulster, all international rallies, Porsche, I got a letter one day with a check in it from Porsche Stuttgart,
Uh-huh.
with a nice check in it. And
Dr. Ferry, probably a note from Dr. Ferry as well.
Oh yeah, it's a full letter. And I couldn't understand it, Trevor. You know, what's all this for? I was not aware of the fact that when you drove a Porsche, be it racing or rallying, that for certain events of an international status, you get so many points, right? And there's so many points entitled you to so much of the prize money. And I got this check. It was money from heaven.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was okay. The next correspondence we got from Porsche after winning the circuit was, would you consider sending your car to Stuttgart to have the car engine, transmission, gearbox and suspension rebuilt? And I put this to Patsy and my service crew. And Patsy says to me, any work we're doing, we'll just do it ourselves.
Uh-huh.
I says, I wonder now how I go back to Porsche, Mr. Stuttgart with that one. So I contacted Porsche. And they said that if I was happy enough to do it, that they would send us over the necessary bits and pieces.
Uh-huh.
They would also send us over an engine, a manual, just to make sure that we had everything on paper if we had any problems.
Yeah.
So I said I would really appreciate that if you want to. Oh yes, we'll do it. So addresses were exchanged and transport was arranged. And the next thing, a guy pulled up in Dungannon. It possibly could have been one of Woodside's lorries, the Hollies people, and they had a delivery to do. And this delivery consisted of a very, very strong and sturdy wooden box, which measured about 6 foot square, 6 foot that way, 6 foot that way,
yeah,
and was about 5 foot high. And they couldn't take it off the lorry without a forklift.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, this was addressed to us, so we had to respond. We got a phone call from the Hollies people. Could we have a forklift in Dungannon or Derry or wherever we wanted to lift it? So we did so. Patsy arranged it, lifted it off and took it down to the garage. This was from Stuttgart. this was new cylinder heads, new camshafts, new pistons, new valve, new everything, new clutch assembly, all the parts to rebuild the gearbox if we thought we needed to rebuild it, brand new clutch, everything. And Patsy Donaghy, God rest him, drove the car into a council garage because he lived in a council house at the time. And when he drove the car in, she didn't go in far enough to let him jack up the back of her to get the engine out. So he took her out again and he reversed her in. But this time he only reversed her in halfway. Patsy Donaghy dropped out the engine and the gearbox, the transmission, everything. And Patsy Donaghy rebuilt that car, engine, transmission and gearbox, in the back of a council garage. Put in new cams, new pistons, everything. And that car won 3 more international rallies after it. And never blinked. It never blinked once.
Imagine if Stuttgart had seen... If Stuttgart had seen that operation, like, and what Patsy was doing, like, it's far removed from what the...
Yes. This is a losing job we're on here. And Patsy, if you're up there, you'll never be forgotten. And thank you.
But in those days, the Circuit of Ireland was such a huge event, though, wasn't it? Internationally, everybody knew about the Circuit of Ireland. Like, everybody in Ireland knew about the Circuit of Ireland. Like, if
anybody, I mean, like, they came from Sweden.
But the number of people who went to Killarney had no interest in rallying whatsoever. They just it's Easter, we're going to Killarney, and that's the party time, and we're sleeping in the car or whatever.
Austin Frazer used to say to me, now, according to the reports here, there's a lot of spectators on this stage. This is right. And please do not be playing to the crowd. That he must have told me that at the start of every stage, because once I saw the multiple colours, the greens, the reds, the blacks, the blues, the whites, I knew it was people, and whatever was there, right-hander, left-hander, we always tried to give them something to remember us by, And he used to say to me, for heaven's sake, stop playing to the crowd, But the crowds, Trevor. Sure, I mean, Donegal, in this day and age, the economy in Donegal, the rally is worth somewhere in the region of 20 plus million to Donegal.
Yeah.
For that, the reconnaissance, the recce job, and then for the rally and the people who come to it. You could not get a hotel room in Donegal for the Donegal rally.
Yeah.
You couldn't get a B&B in Donegal for the Donegal rally.
So what do you think what do you think of this Rally Northern Ireland proposal then, trying to get the event here for 2022 then? Thoughts on that?
It would be absolutely fantastic. It would be fantastic for rallying. But there's another aspect of that, Trevor. It would be fantastic for the north of Ireland. Because, the north of Ireland at this moment in time, I don't mind saying it publicly or privately, it's not in the greatest place with Brexit and the political situation and whatnot. And, if we had something like that in 2022, the only thing people could take away from it and the only thing that people could see in it, if it's properly filmed, was, isn't that a beautiful place?
Yeah.
We've got to go there, what it would mean to the economy, what it would mean to the general public and whatnot. It would be fantastic, apart from what it would mean to the rally fraternity, It's got an awful, it's like a tree with a lot of branches on it, Trevor.
Yeah.
That would be a tree with an enormous amount of branches on it that could be utilised in so many ways, Business-wise, hospitality-wise, attractiveness-wise, holiday-wise. It could do wonders.
Career-wise in motorsport as well. And of course, we don't have a round in the UK at the minute, and you think of the motorsport industry in the UK that relies on rallying. And again, having a halo event up here. You talked about the clubmen trying to go down to their local garage and get a few quid off the local garage. If that local garage doesn't know much about rallying, they certainly will after the World Championship comes here for a year.
It would be, it'd just be, I don't want to think too much about it because I'll be afraid that I might be disappointed. But I think Stormont should have a major role in encouraging people and in financing the necessary finance to get the thing on board here. Because the benefits of that, Trevor, overall, it doesn't bear thinking about it. It would be phenomenal.
Incredible. And in your neck of the woods, then, with the Open being there in Portrush a few years back, of course, and one little part of Northern Ireland as well, as opposed to the rally, where it's going to visit most of it.
Absolutely,
big difference.
I mean, if you started a rally in Torhead and you come up the north coast, shame it, the father,
Well, you keep an eye on the World Championship still, don't you?
Listen, my son Connor and Chris Meek are big buddies, always have been, and they communicate a number of times a week. And even when Chris was driving in the works drive, when he got into the stop that night, he phoned Connor to give him a report and one thing and all. And Chris got a sort of I was speaking to him a couple of times, and I said, "What is the problem, Chris?" And he says, "Well," he says, "I suppose, to be honest with you," he says, "the birth certificate would be a bit of a problem." Meaning like that he was 40 years of age. And I mean, I was saying to you there earlier on, I retired from rallying when I was 33. And one of the reasons why I retired, Trevor, was the buzz of having won all of these things. It disintegrated a wee bit when you actually achieved the winning of them all. And there wasn't a lot more of a target to shoot at. Now, it's different for the likes of Barry Batman or Roger Clark or those guys who are paid serious wages for their driving ability. But we were into a sort of well, apart from the checkered flag, we were footing the bill ourselves, for all and everything, and it was great to win, but still in those days it was expensive. But I think any rally driver within the confines of the island of Ireland, if they're reasonably competitive, I would say their one dying wish would be to win the circuit. But that was the circuit that I was doing, Trevor. That was the circuit that started on Friday and finished on Tuesday. And you drove all afternoon Friday, all night Friday night, and all day Saturday. You got a rest on Saturday night. You were up at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning and into Mall's Gap. You were up at 6 o'clock because of the church-going people from all denominations who went to their churches on a Sunday. The rally was organised in conjunction with those people. So you had to start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you had 12 or 14 stages on Sunday. Then you started on Monday morning.
You forgot about the party. On the Sunday night. Go on.
The dancing, the disco, and the party. Oh, yes. Well, now, Trevor, if you found yourself in my position, the partying was going to have to be put on the long finger, I doubt, because if you were going to be partying, you were maybe going to do something silly the next day or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, that was the Sunday, 12 or 14 stages on Sunday. Monday morning or Monday mid-morning, around 11 o'clock, you started on Monday, all day Monday, all night of Monday night until the afternoon of Tuesday until Ireland. There were 52 special stages.
Yeah, and so 1,500 stage miles. Yeah,
1,500 stage miles. That took an awful lot of luck. It took an awful lot of effort in one thing. And no notes, Trevor, all blind.
But things are good in the championship. You know how successful Chris was. 5 World Championship wins. Craig Breen's doing fantastic with Paul Nagel.
Yeah. Craig Breen and myself at the Deja Vu in Killarney. The boys had gathered a few bits and pieces for the auction, because we tried to have an auction. Beatty and Plum and myself tried to gather up a few bits and pieces for an auction, and I was the auctioneer, and my assistant was Master Breen. And I 110, 120, 130. Are we all finished at 130? This is a wonderful opportunity for a beautiful picture. I've 140, and so I kept it going. And then, okay, Craig, over to that man, get his name and address and get the money off him. And Craig was doing
He was your
he
runner.
was doing the deliveries,
Uh-huh.
you know. Lovely fella. Lovely fella.
Yeah. Well, times are good, as I say. You've got those guys. You've got Josh McErlan now going into WRC2. Cam Devine's going to have a go at it again. Of course, Junior Championship, you've got John Armstrong and William Creighton. So, William Creighton.
These are names popping up. These are names popping up. And, you know, if it was John Clark, a son of Rogers, or if it was Conor Curley, a son of Cahill's, or somebody, you know, but these young fellas have come all on the scene, and I don't know the background with a lot of them, because their fathers, probably they'd be 20, the fathers would be 50. I wouldn't have been about in the father's time either, you know. But it's great to see those young lads progressing, and it also, Trevor, it goes to show you the potential of the sport here, the actual ability of some of the guys who were driving here. I mean, we're a long way from Sweden or the Swedes, like, you know, they used to be the top boys, and we don't get the same opportunities as some of the lads in the UK maybe get, you know, where you have big companies and big sponsors. And, you know, to go out to compete today in those events with the intentions of trying to get something on the lines of a world drive, you know, or a works drive, it's very, very, very competitive. I mean, those 3 or 4 young fellas that you mentioned there, you know, like it would be a ding-dong battle, you know. And of course, they all can't be winners.
That's
has
it.
to be losers too.
That's the thing, yeah. And
you know?
co-drivers, Liam Reagan, there's loads of them there, fantastic. You know, it's great to see drivers and co-drivers having an opportunity. And again, the academy system that they've got, the Rally Ireland side of things, Rally Academy in the UK, Billy Coleman Award, people like John Coyne investing, just amazing, you know. So fair play. Let's keep it going. Listen,
I introduced Phil Coulter and Barry McGuigan to rallying, and Phil Coulter. After my the funny story I tell about it, Trevor, is Coulter came along with me whenever I bought AUI 1500 from AFN, and he bought a blue one.
Okay.
And his number was PMC 156L, and it was actually his own initials, Philip Michael Coulter, but he just happened to come across PMC, and took him out. He finished 3rd overall or 4th overall in the Cork International, which from a music writing background wasn't too bad. We went together to Las Vegas to Barry McGuigan's fight where he lost the World Championship. And he lost it because I have the actual scorecards from that fight, Trevor. And going into the last round, Barry McGuigan was leading by a half a point or a point. He was a half a round or a round ahead. And he just got caught with a sucker punch. I mean, just out of the blues. We were in ringside, and there were 6 spotlights on every corner of the ring. We were sitting, not moving. The dicky bows had to come off. The short had to be opened. You know, you were actually perspiring at an awful rate. So what was it like for the 2 boys in the ring?
Yeah.
And McGuigan coming to the last round, he was just exhausted. He just dropped his guard and he got caught. And we flew back with him on the plane. And he said to me, you know, I don't know if I'll continue now with the boxing. I've gone as far as I can go. But he said, tell me this. You're a good driver, Cathal. And I said, well, I'm all right, Barry, you know. He says, would you teach me how to drive a rally car? And I says, well, I could try it. I could certainly introduce you to it. So Austin Frazer and myself got the loan of a Forest and then a Skillen. And when I say we got the loan of it, we had the key of the gate. So it was only us could get into it, because you don't want to be in a Forest. And I got a car built by Sidney Meek, a Ford Orion.
That's a 2-door one, yeah. Niall McShay used, Stephen Finlay used it. Yeah.
Yes.
And Barry's got it now, I think, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yes, and that was the car that I took Barry McGuigan out to teach him. And I took him out and I showed him, if it's a left-hand bend, sometimes it helps if you come down, if you give a wee squiggle right and then fire the car into the bend on the left, that would be the tactic in a lot of forest guys, Now, that was when you were running with two-wheel. Four-wheel drive today is a different ball game. They just turn into the bend today and sort of drift away out of it. But they don't really set the car up the way that we used to. So I had to go Barry 2 weeks. Sydney, Meek and Austin and Barry and me spent in the forest, and I taught him what I could and got him in. I got him driving. And then there was the Erin Safari Rally. And they wanted to do it. And I said, well, we'll do it on one condition. I'm your co-driver, and you'll do as I tell you. Now, his reflexes, Trevor, were very good. He really was very, very sharp, but he had to be in the profession he was in. He had to have reflexes second to none. So we took him out, and we finished the Erin Safari Rally, which lasted all day on the Saturday. And I left him after that, and he brought a wee Vauxhall, and he did a wee bit of racing around Nuts Corner and whatnot, But he had a great desire. And I remember saying to him, and he told me after, in fact, I speak to him about every 4 or 5 weeks on the phone, because he's coming over and he's going to stay with me for the weekend, because he got a very bad result against Carl Frampton, as you know.
Yeah, it's a shame how all that happened, wasn't it?
Oh, Trevor, it's terrible. He lost the Barney Eastwood legal one, and he lost the Carl Frampton one, and it would have hit them financially very, very strong. And now this other gentleman from Dublin who's in a boat hole in Dubai, Kennigan, who has now sort of trying to take over the boxing world. Barry and Shane had a team of about 13 or 14 guys, good guys, because they only take guys who have got a degree of potential. And they took 7 or 8 of them off them.
Yeah.
They just simply asked them, listen, we'll give you £1,000 a week and we'll cover your expenses. It's no problem to some of these outfits to do that with the amount of money that they have. I can't say anything I'm going to be sued for, but you know the story. So I mean, a young fella's over there, he's scraping through, and somebody offers him £1,000 a week, come to us, and we'll get you the same promotion and so on and so forth. Yeah. So 7 or 8 of them jumped at it, But,
yeah, got you.
Barry told me one of the problems in the boxing world is you haven't too many boys in the boxing world with 2 or 3 degrees to their name. They would be maybe not that well educated, or not that clever, or not that shrewd, or not that smart, and it doesn't take a big lot to tempt them. But anyway, to get back to rally, and I had a great time with Coulter and a great time with Barry, All
right. We need to wrap this up soon. Can you believe it? It's 2 hours and 47 minutes since we started talking.
I definitely cannot. Is there no questions about sex, drugs, drink, or rock and roll?
Well, there's a question here. There's a question here that I think is quite interesting. This is Mark Johnson. This is Alan Johnson's son, originally.
Oh, Alan Johnson's son.
Yeah.
Well, if he's half the man or half the gentleman his father was, he's a great man.
He is a great lad.
Looking back over the last 50 years of rallying, which
era would you like to compete at top level? Group 4, Group B, Group A, or the current World Rally cars?
I'd like the current World Rally cars, Trevor, because I think now Chris Meek would be the first to tell you these cars are easy to drive. It's just getting that last ounce out of them. It's getting round the bend at 68 miles an hour instead of round it at 66 miles an hour.
Yes.
That's how Chris put it. He says, if you watch them, he says, most of them, if they're in a competitive mood or in a competitive position, they're very much on the limit everywhere. There's no place that they're slow, unless it's a problem with the car. And he says the car is built from a driver's point of view. He says it handles well, it performs well, it yumps well, it bends well, it steers well, and it's just a matter of taking it to that limit, that limit that is the limit and not a shade over the limit, and keeping it at the limit.
Uh-huh.
We used to talk about driving on 9/10, 9.5 tenths, and 10 tenths. And they used to say, if you want to win, you really got to be knocking on the 10 most of the time. And that's right. And that's how, if you watch some of the WRC boys there, if you look at your guy there, the Russian guy who went off in a rally there, and he didn't hit a tree, but he went over the tops of trees. And he rolled. He rolled quite a few times.
Titanic you're talking about, was it?
Titanic, yes. Over the top of trees, at maybe 100 miles an hour, and gets out of the car. The cars, if they can avoid a fire, the cars are extremely safe. Whether it's rolling or head on or rear on or whatever, they are built to withstand serious bangs,
Yeah.
And I would like to be at that stage. I would like to be in a WRC 50 years ago would leave me 30. Well, maybe 55 years ago when it was 25 or 30. I would love to be in a WRC, because Chris will be the first to tell you they're not a difficult car to drive, but you're not going to win a WRC on 9.5 tenths. You've got to be on 10 tenths,
Yeah. People don't understand that, I don't think, and the difference between, everybody says, well, why don't you come off? Why don't you go back out of it? So if you're 5 seconds slower than somebody, if you just feather a throttle, if you just feather instead of flat and pin to the floor, that's 5 seconds potentially. So people just don't understand. And it's a shame. It's always been a shame to see people criticize Chris, because they just don't understand a lot of them. I understand.
I used to have a motto, Trevor, and my motto was driving the car. Your right foot must never be idle. It's either flat to the mat or flat on the brake, but there's no cruising in between. There's no feather throttle in between. You're either flat to the junction and you jam on the brakes, and then you're back flat on the throttle again, So there's no in between. There's no resting in between. And that's where you get that 1 second and that 2 second on stages and places. Your right foot has got to be acting 100% of the time.
Got you. We need to talk about the Stratos before we do anything. So
well, the Stratos. I'll give the history of the Stratos. When Graham Warner bought the Stratos and he gave it to me, Per Ingel Wolfson, right, was the other driver to drive it in the forest.
Yeah.
Right. So we got the Stratos over and we took it out to an MOD test track. And I drove it and I pumped the brake 3 or 4 times. And my brake pedal went flat to the floor. So I said, something wrong with the brakes or something. So Per was sitting beside me. So he drove it and I sat beside him. This was after giving the brakes cool and whatnot. And he got the same problem. No brakes. Excuse me. But we were on a massive tarmac situation. There was no bumps. There was no undulating road. It was a very, very flat surface. And it was very wet. There was no problem getting the car sideways, none whatsoever. But anyway, I took it to Belgium with John Jensen and I drove it. And honestly, Trevor, this is a fact. In Belgium, for me to get it stopped at high speeds, I used to jam it in second gear to trail the back wheels, because the engine, it was way past the engine rest, but it never did the engine any harm. I used to jam it back into second gear at 80 or 90 miles an hour to lock up the back wheels. My brakes were gone. So I went to Graham Warner and I told him. So Ron Pallett was a chief engineer in Checkered Flag in London. And Ron took the front of the Stratos and he cut 2 round holes and he put on 2 drafts into the brakes, like a cone shape, a wide mouth just coming in straight on top of the brake caliper. Now that helped, but where we pumped it 3 times and we got fade, we now pump it 5 times and we get fade. So I told Graham Warner, I said, Graham, I'm not prepared to drive that car. I just don't want to drive it anymore. It's impossible to drive it. It will not drive. no brakes, but then, Trevor, no suspension damping. The suspension, it was like a go-kart. It could not be driven. I don't care, Billy Coleman, Roger Clark, Gary Bott, I don't care who drove it.
Uh-huh.
Sandro Minari won the circuit, he won the Monte Carlo and won.
Yeah.
And Ron Pollitt and Graham Warner decided they'd take the car to Turin. And they would strip the car beside the works car till they got the discrepancy. The discrepancy was my car had Fiat 127 brake calipers and discs, and the brake pads weren't the size of the old half crown.
Yeah.
This is a Fiat 127, which is a wee bubble car.
Uh-huh.
That's the caliper and the brake discs that were on my car. My car's damping was non-existent. The works car's damped to 3 inches.
Yeah, okay.
When Ron Pollitt stripped the works car beside him, he found that the brake calipers and the brake discs on her were of a Fiat 125, which is a big saloon car.
Yeah.
Those who remember Fiats in the 70s, the Fiat 125 was the equivalent today of a Mondeo, right? And that was the brakes and calipers. That's when Billy had the pleasure of driving the car. Whenever Checkered Flag got the proper suspension, proper coil springs, proper suspension, and proper brakes. Fantastic car. Ferrari Dino engine. Ferrari, beautiful car.
3
Great
litre
car to
V6.
drive. Yes, great car to drive in a straight line if you didn't have to stop. But honestly, on my oath, we had to jam the car back into second gear in Ypres in Belgium to get the car stopped coming up the junction because I didn't have a pedal.
Wow.
So, I went back to Graham Warner and I said, I don't care what you do to the car. I'm not driving that car anymore. And he decided that he would sponsor me in the 3 litre Porsche,
Yeah.
I wondered, Trevor, before I wrap up, hello to Pat McCord, hello to Fonzie McElwee, and to John K. Cassidy, my very good friend, BMW dealer in Coleraine, who I buy a lot of my used my quality used cars off. And Fonzie McElwee, I don't want to do any business with him, Trevor. He's an undertaker, So I don't want to see him coming about the house. Pat McCord, lifelong fan. Circuit, Billy Coleman honestly said to me, you must have had a 5 litre engine in that Porsche. I said, no, Billy, a 2.7. Stanley Baxter, I talked to Stanley, I retired. Austin, Frazer and Doreen. Austin, before we close, my sincere thanks to you and Doreen, but especially to you, Austin. You kept me on the straight when I got very narrow, and you never let anything happen to me. He was a great guy. I'll be forever indebted to him. My daughter's in the background, Trevor, and she's going, look at the time it is, you're holding that man up. Well, I says, I'm going to push it the other way, Helen. He's holding me up because, as long as he sits there, I'll sit here,
Helen think twice before she just sets all this up for us again. So you've got your booking agent Connor and you've got your PA Helen. You just walk in. You're just like one of these movie stars walk in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to finish with before? We're going to look at a few more comments. But you finish if you got anything, or have a think about. We'll have a couple more comments in. We can allow you to finish, and then you stay where you are. And
I'm in no hurry, Trevor. I'm in no hurry. I mean, Helen's using the background now. Saying 3 hours.
Right.
I'd like to say hello to the Nolan family in Dublin. I'd like to say hello to anyone that knows me, and thank you for your support. I've had great support. I've had great fans. I've had great times. Sammy Hamill was very, very good to me when I was looking for a bit of sponsorship. Sammy out of the Belfast Telegraph, because I used to say, Sammy, I'm retiring. And Sammy would do an article, Curley is retiring. And then I'd get a bit of sponsorship from someone. And I say, no, I'm not. And then I'd phone Sammy maybe 3 months after that. Sammy, I'm definitely retiring. Again, they used to say, you're retiring again? Many times do you want to retire? Right. So Plum and Beatty. And my first co-driver, Trevor, was Esler Crawford.
Yes,
Esler Crawford used to travel from Bangor or Whitehead to Enniskillen and to Derry and to Omagh to do navigation rallies with me in a Volkswagen Beetle or in a Volkswagen 1500 fastback. He was a great co-driver and a great guy. And he never asked me for a penny All he wanted after the rally was a large brandy. And I went up to see him in Bangor there recently before he died, heaven rest him. And I went up to see him, and I said, listen, I didn't forget what I owed you. I have a bottle of brandy here with me for you. And I gave him a bottle of brandy. And I stayed with him for about a half an hour, 45 minutes in the house in Bangor. Great fella. Great fella. I've probably missed out a clattering, boys, but you know, I've told enough lies for one night.
I just want to show you something quickly. It was on the Dungannon Motor Club website, which, as you know, Derek Smith does a lot with.
Yeah.
But this is
Derek Smith is a lovely wife, and Pat McCourt's dying about her. I can tell Derek Smith that, you know. Derek, watch yourself. Watch that on one, because Pat McCourt is a soft spot for her.
Like, there's stories on there. This is 68, and they go back even to the 65s when you won the navigation, the Ulster Navigation Championship. So we didn't even have time to look at this sort of stuff here. There's just loads of it everywhere, which is just fantastic. Right, let's get back here. So Stocky says, brilliant interview. Tom says, great Friday night's entertainment. Who else have we got here? Did you go to the Iford Dogs? That's Saturday night. Okay.
Yes.
We haven't even talked about dogs. We don't have time for that at the minute. No, we talked about horses and horsepower.
Sean Murray, Cathal is welcome in Kerry. Well, thank you very much, Sean. And your namesake, Mihal. I was speaking to him yesterday and I was telling him about the show. And he has produced the book. He produced 500 of them, and they're sold out. And he's produced another 500, and I've ordered another half dozen of them. So Mihal Moriarty, thank you very much for everything, and thank you for the mention in the book. Look me up, and we'll go and have a drive. Yes.
Yep. Bob Woodside.
Robert Woodside
Jr.
Or Robert Jr. And how is Robert Sr.? Because Robert Sr., when I had him down in Donegal as a guest, himself and Reggie McSpadden, Robert had a wee touch of prostate cancer. He knows it. Everybody knows it. And I just often wondered how he is. I know that his pal Reggie is not great, but I was just wondering about Robert Sr. And not him and Ian Woodside, two of the nicest people that ever had a steering wheel in their hand. And I would like to say, I hope you are all doing well.
Cool. We don't have time for these stories, but we're just flashing them.
Do you remember embarrassing Phil Coulter in the Beverly Hills Hotel? I remember being in the Beverly Hills Hotel, Norman, but I don't really remember the embarrassing bit. I suppose I'm trying to hide from it, but I honestly don't. Unless you remind me about it, I don't. But we were in the Beverly Hills Hotel. Trevor, think it's bedtime. Oh, Conor Curley, very good, smart arse. You think it's bedtime? You know, it's bedtime for young people like you who need your sleep. Old boys and me. Conor is shaking in his boots about next year's Donegal. I know Liam. Conor Curley, because I'm not sure who will be paying. I know he paid in the last 3 or 4 Donegals on him. Your old papa here, so you know, need to get yourself going, sell a few more cars, Conor. John Wilson, John, we don't want any stickers. What about the song Phil Coulter, Hey CB? Yeah, I must say I was so honoured when Coulter wrote a song for that well-known Scottish group, the Bay City Rollers. And the song was called Hey CB. And if I had a bit of a backing group, John, I'd give you a verse or two of it. But I'm sorry I don't have the backing group. But it was great.
Right. Your big mate, Rory Kennedy, earlier
Rory Kennedy, a true gentleman of rallying, and probably the best co-driver in Ireland.
Right. I won't take that to heart at all, but go on ahead. Well, this lovely man you've just described there said, ask him about rolling the Stratos in the last corner of Atlantic Drive. That's all he can think of tonight to ask you.
Who's that?
Rory Kennedy, bringing up all that dirt, dishing the dirt on you.
Okay, Rory, I'll give you the dirt. I come in to do the Atlantic Drive in the Stratos, myself and Drexel, and flat right, and was it CB in the Stratos and the roof and the Drexel co-drive?
Same story. Go on ahead.
Right, okay, same story. Right, Phil Coulter and Brian Mitchell, who was the sales manager in Checkered Flag. We're down at the bottom or at the start of Atlantic Drive on the left, down past the Rossapana Hotel, down in the village of Downings, and we were going to the start. It was being done in anti-clockwise.
Yep.
No, clockwise, sorry, clockwise.
Okay.
And they said to me, where's a good spot to be? I said, you see up on the top of the hill there? There's a left-hander up there. And I says, if you go up there, I says, that's where the action will be. It's very, very fast and very tricky.
Uh-huh.
It was too fast and too tricky for CB, because I came round and I knew the boys were there. And as usual, Austin Frazer wasn't with me, so there'd be no playing to the crowd. So I had a bit of a bang at the last corner in Atlantic Drive, and I finished up on the roof in the Stratos. That's it, and that's the truth. Me and my big head. If Coulter and Mitchell hadn't been there, I'd have got round the bend. I'm quite sure I got round all the rest of the bends in Atlantic Drive, which would amount to maybe 100. And it didn't get round the last one because the two boys I knew were standing there. And I instructed them to go there, once again. So, hands up, my fault.
If you're watching this, kids, no showboating now. Uncle Cal tells you. Rodney wants to know what ATB stands for when you're giving your autographs.
When I'm giving my autograph, ATB is all the best. Because if I start to go into best wishes and so on and so forth, it's so much simpler to put ATB. And if anybody asks me what it is, it's all the best.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying the show tonight. Never met Cathal before, but he's good crack. That's my sister, Cal. So she's awesome.
Listen, I don't know about yourself, but you have a wonderful brother. Absolutely wonderful. Who I would like to give him a lot more credit for what he has done for rallying, what he's done for people. And I mean, this show here tonight, okay, there mightn't be a lot of people watching it, but I'll bet that those who are watching it, I hope, enjoyed it and it passed the night for them. And they'll maybe look forward to the next one, because this man, Trevor Agnew, can only get better at whatever he does.
Stop. Right.
No, that's a fact.
Bobby Willis is grateful of your support.
Bobby, I'm not alone supporting it. I'm supporting it from the rally point of view and from your own point of view, because you work very, very hard at it. I know you and I have had our differences, but listen, if we can't forgive and forget, we're not human beings. I think it would be massive for the north of Ireland to get something like that from everybody's point of view. I don't care. Forget about the orange and the green. From everybody's point of view, it would be absolutely fabulous, Bobby. And if ever I can be of any help or influence anybody or talk to anybody, you know where I am.
Good man. Mr. Sample's watching.
Trevor Sample. Not a bad fella, Trevor. Not a bad fella. But he probably thinks that I may be a wee bit boisterous or a wee bit cheeky, It was fantastic to see VB drive Tony Kelly's.
Vincent Bonner, there we go. And Donna Kelly's Volkswagen Polo R5. So he wants to know if you wouldn't mind shotting one.
I would be absolutely dying about it. And if anybody's brave enough, or maybe I should eliminate that word, if anybody's stupid enough to give me a drive in one of them, they'll have no problem getting an acceptance from me. I'm still there, 80 or no 80, Trevor. I'm still there, still buoyant. Thank God. I've got all of my faculties, I think, anyway. But so I'm ready if they're able.
Okay.
Next one we have Trevor and CB. Very good, Dean. Very, very good.
Dean's a good lad. Bobby's just reminding you when you finish this to get Helen to help you fill the survey in.
Right. Well, Bobby, I'll repeat myself. If there's anything I can do to help rallying or to help you to bring it to this neck of the woods or to the north of Ireland, I'm on standby.
No
what
problem.
Does Cathal think of what AUA is worth now? Well, AUA, John, was sold to an American collector for $1 million. And the guy thought he'd get £1 million sterling for it here, but he didn't, because those 2.7 RS Carreras, a good one of them, they're making £500,000-600,000, and that one had a history. That was, would you believe, Trevor? Porsche told us that was the most successful 2.7 Carrera RS that they built. that was the most successful one out of all of their. And I mean, Walter Roll drove their cars, and that was a very popular rally car, the 2.7, and
Yeah.
that AUI 1500. So there was a very good history. And some of those multimillionaire guys who have a collection of Porsches, that would be one of the ones that would really add to the collection. The history with that car is phenomenal. Well, it's very good. I didn't mean to use the word phenomenal. It is a very good history with it.
Do, 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 do. What about Cathal's good greyhounds that you've had? We haven't talked about greyhounds tonight at all.
Colin, I'm still searching. I got a good woman. I got a good rally car. I got a good business. The greyhounds have a sort of eluded me. I have a number of greyhounds. But they're probably like myself. They're a wee bit on the slow side now, So that's to be expected.
And you couldn't come on the show a couple of weeks ago because you were off looking at the greyhound Norma, my neck of the woods. Definitely one of the best shows. There you go. So
so far, CB, a real delight to listen to you. Thank you very much, Parag. It's nice to get that. It's nice to get that sort of compliment from people like yourself, because, Parag, I regard you as a person that knows your business.
David Buggy reckons it's great stories and keep her lit. There's lots of this as I scroll down through this. Castle's enthusiasm is incredible.
Fantastic
5-litre brain as well from Ben Keeley. People enjoying the shows.
Oh my God.
Sean Hurley reckons you haven't changed a bit over the years.
Great stories from CB, hasn't changed a bit over the years. Well, you know what I said, Sean? Someone asked me, about myself, and they didn't see me for 20 or 25 years. And they said to me, God, CB, you haven't changed a bit. And I quietly said, Sean, there's no need to change when you're perfect.
Right, where have we got to? Great show, Cathal's sharp, witty, funny, listening forever. Yeah, good luck to you.
John McKinley, back again. What's your all-time favourite stage? Probably stage-wise, probably Atlantic Drive, because you definitely have to be on your toes for Atlantic Drive. There must be 150 corners on it. It's impossible to memorise it, but you can, it's a fantastic stage. Atlantic Drive.
Atlantic Drive over Knockalla then, yeah?
Well, Knockalla is a taste of stupidity and guts, and I'd be lacking in both those at the moment, Trevor. There was a time when I had them plentiful, but not today. The right foot would be coming up when it should be going down on the right pedal.
Who else have we got here then, just to finish off, and then we'll definitely have to call tonight. So Robert saying that Robert Senior's doing well, thanks.
That's absolutely, Robert Wood said, I'm delighted, and please give my very best regards to Robert Senior, and the best of luck to yourself, Robert. I see your lorries there frequently in our neck of the woods, and always say they're always tidy and they're always clean, but that's a Woodside thing. Thank you very much, Robert.
Always have been. Thanks, Robin. Harry Burke, great night. Trevor, full of a little magic. Thank you. Okay.
And very good.
Stocky said, one of the best ones, really enjoyed. There we go. And we never even talked. We never even talked about the Nissan, about the Datsun 240Z. You did rally, or the Lombard RAC.
Yeah, I drove for Nissan in the RAC. Trevor and my whole team were over there with me, and they saw this Datsun 240Z coming down the stage, completely sideways and on the limit. And the boys saw it in the distance, and they said, no, that's not CB. That's some of them Swedish boys. They're clean mad altogether. And the next thing was, oh, Jesus, it is CB. It is CB. But we ran out of front wheel bearings, Trevor. Would you believe? She kept, it must have been the stub axle or something. She kept destroying front wheel bearings until they ran out of them and the front wheel seized her. And we had to retire.
Yeah.
And Trevor, a funny one about that, the boys will enjoy it. Margaret packed me case, and I had a pair of driving boots, but Margaret didn't put them in. But at that time, the style was, with the young guys, was you wore a shoe with a bit of a heel on it, I arrived down at the start of the RAC rally with me racing suit on, my helmet, my gloves and everything, and a pair of shoes with a high heel on them. Why is he looking at your man? Is he going to drive a car with them boots on him, you know? But we stopped on the way out to the first stage. We stopped at a shoe shop and I bought a pair of runners. And they did me for the rest of the rally. Margaret forgot to put in me racing shoes.
That was mad, wasn't it? Listen, any last stories, any last things you want to tell before we finish?
No,
here?
no. If there's any more, Trevor, I will keep you up half the night. I'll put it to you this way: anytime you're doing anything, or anytime anybody needs any advice or help at a function or anything else in the north or south of Ireland, I don't care where it is, just give me a ring and I'll be there if it's rally orientated or if it can help anyone with a function, anything. It doesn't matter. I've got over my stage fright, Trevor. You know, I can go on the stage, it's no problem. I can't sing and I can't dance, but I can walk on the stage. You know,
listen, it's been absolutely amazing having you on. Thanks very much for 3 hours of energy. It's amazing in your 81st year. That's fantastic to see. Sharp as a button as well.
When you told me, Trevor, that the time flies, I said, very good, Trevor. You'll find that after an hour and 15 minutes that we have told everything and done everything. But as you said to me at the start, it just goes on forever. You know, my daughter's in the background again, Trevor, and this is what she's doing now. You know, that's it. That's it. Called tonight. Connor will be on shortly. For goodness sake, God, would you pack it in? You're only keeping Trevor up out of his bed, you know.
Don't you worry about it. We did something similar with Mr. Lands last week. We'll get over 3 hours. So anyway, you stay where you are. I'm just going to finish off here and I'll come back to you in a second. All right, Cathal?
Just let me say good night to Doreen and Austin Frazer, to Fonzie McElwee, to Pat McCourt, to Jack Cassidy, my very good friend Nicole Rain, best friend ever I had, and to anyone that knows me. My 2 sons who have supported me, my 2 lovely daughters who have supported me, my wife, Trevor, who has managed to still stay with me up to now. We celebrated, she doesn't like to hear this, but we celebrated 50 years of marriage, and we're getting a bit closer to 60 at the moment. And to the Nolan family in Dublin and everybody else, I send you my warmest wishes, and I hope everything works out for you. That's all. Hope we get over this COVID thing and we get back to a situation of normality. And when the breath is there, Trevor, and I'm still upright, I'm available to anybody, especially yourself.
Good man. Cathal, it's been brilliant. Thanks very much for being there. As I say, stay where you are and we'll have a chat in a minute. Thanks for that, Cathal. Right. Cheers.
You're welcome, Trevor. Thank you. And thank everybody that came on. Thanks for all the questions and especially thanks for all the lovely remarks.
This is like my wife. When I try to leave a party or try to leave somebody's house, it's about half an hour for her thanking everybody for it.
Yes. My wife's the same. Right. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, everybody.
Good luck. There we go. That is the one and only CB Curley. And legend, I think, certainly applies to that man. Remember the survey? If you search for Rally Northern Ireland, you'll be able to get the website, complete the survey for Bobby and for everybody that wants the rally back in the UK. That's great. Remember, any of these shows, including this one, those people who have missed it or if you've only seen half of it, remember, 10 minutes or so after we finish it, it'll be uploaded onto YouTube and on Facebook. And anybody that you want to watch it or you will go back and watch it yourself, stagesbystage.com/blog. And that includes all the previous shows last week with John Lyons, Kenny McKinstry, the West Cork special, the Galway special. There's just a load of them there. Co-drivers, Rory Candy, Gordon Noble, lots of those there, folks. And the same with the podcasts, which are the educational bits. Lots of successful people on there. That's what we're talking about. So it has been another epic night. Thanks very much for staying with me, all 200 people, for another 3 hour plus bonus. Fair play day, especially on Good Friday. As I said to you, I'd considered not even doing it tonight, but the fact that you've all turned up is just great. We'll be back again next Friday. At the minute, not exactly sure who with, but we've got a high bar left tonight. So good luck to whoever's filling that one next week. Folks, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week.